Were you out walking this morning, Tommy?
I was, my dad was on the hill of Tara, yes. But nippy enough now. Nippy enough.
I'll say that, yeah.
Yeah, still it's great, but it's very mucky.
Oh yeah, I go out walking down the bog beside me here. It was grand over in the frost. Then it was just
Yeah, yeah. Tara was lovely during the frost. We could walk on the middle of the field, you know. It was fantastic. You have to get out when you have heavy going like this that we're going into. Sharon was on the beach. That's where she got the car.
Oh yeah.
I was on the beach.
Sharon was jogging on the beach.
I can report it's looking fabulous and well used.
Gordon Elliott was over there yesterday.
Really?
Yes.
Gordon Elliott with Tiger Roll and a whole gang of horses.
Jesus, that must have been the complaints I received.
No cars in their way, Joe.
No cars in their way.
The only horsepower is the right horsepower.
No, Sharon, please don't go any further.
If you want to speak, you're on mute.
Yeah. You know where the little place is?
Yeah, but it doesn't come up all the time, does it?
You have to press them.
Or do I?
Yeah.
Like this here, is it? Oh, Jesus.
You go on your own one.
What we might just do is just remind everybody just to go on mute, if that's possible. While they're not.
We're hearing everything that's going on now. Keep talking. We're hearing everything, every little tittle tattle you're talking about.
You'll hear me shouting in a minute, get back to class! Get back to class!
But it's just 2:00 now. We'll give it another couple of minutes just to let people settle in, if that's okay with everybody.
Before we give us before we start, just tell us who's participating.
The people who are in addition to the members.
Oh no, just the members. What members we have, so we know who's on or not on.
Well, we'll know if you go to participants at the side. You'll be able to see who's there. Yeah. So again, we'll take it at the kind of the same pace as we went through yesterday, where if you have a problem, if you feel that you've missed anything or that you're not clear, just bring it to my attention, and we'll make sure that everybody is happy that we're all on the same page, metaphorically and actually. So, again, and I think yesterday went quite well, and the hope is that today will go the same way.
He's good.
Okay, so we have 18 members, so that we have a quorum anyway. So we might just give it just 1 or 2 more minutes, and then we'll move back into the meeting proper. Is that okay? Just chat amongst yourselves. Okay. So. Okay, so I think what we might do is get ready to recommence the meeting. If anybody who, could you mute your microphones, please? Thank you very much. There's 1, 2, 3 people who aren't muted at the moment, plus myself. And also, it is very important, as highlighted in the discussions that took place around all interaction online. It is vital that you have your camera switched on during the course of the meeting. You will be reminded to switch it on, and if you can't switch it on for whatever reason, you will be removed to the waiting room. There's particularly that's until you get an opportunity to activate your camera. So that's just something that we have always been quite insistent on, and it's something we'll continue to be. So that's something that is just bearing back your mind. It is part of our key directions that we have a list of them. It's our own personal responsibility of all participants to ensure that there's no other persons present who are not entitled to be present for this meeting. Recording of the meeting or any part of it is not permitted. No member of the public should attempt to speak or interrupt the meeting or interact with members of the council during the meeting. And you must observe the direction given by the Cathaoirleach or by the council official, and the failure to follow any direction given may result in exclusion from the meeting. They're a fairly standard meeting. There's nothing different in that than we have participating the whole time from the start of our hybrid meetings. Even it's exactly the same. And then just to remind people again that during the course of the conversation, if you wish to participate, comment or make an observation, if you could just use the raise hand function that is on the interface, and then we'll get to you. And the hand function, when you're finished your contribution, remember to switch it off, just to avoid any confusion or misunderstandings that may take place. Particularly when we get to the stages around voting. Again, everything will be explained prior to any direct intervention that you or interaction with yourselves, particularly around the voting. We'll ensure that everybody is clear on what it is we're voting on. So when we get to that stage, we'll be sure to go through that as well. So the beauty of the online option is that it gives us a little bit more time to work around, rather than the 1 hour and 55-minute constraint that we had prior to the online option. Again, it worked very well yesterday. The meeting kind of came to a natural conclusion, and we hope that it'll happen again today. So what we might do is, when everybody is ready, we might just recommence the meeting formally now and hand you over to Sean. And Sean will, and also, first of all, I'd like to welcome everybody here today, and thanks for coming back. And so then we'll hand on to Sean and we'll recommence the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach. Just going to call up our presentation now. Sorry.
There's a microphone not muted at the moment, I can see there, as well as Sean's. So if we could just do that.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Members, just starting off again as usual in terms of our statutory obligations with regards to reviewing and considering the county development plan. Your statutory applications come under the ethical framework for local government service and the code of conduct for councillors, and you are individually responsible for being compliant with same. It is an offence if you fail to comply with some sections of the ethical framework. In terms of disclosure at meetings, when a matter comes before a meeting for consideration where you or someone connected to you has a beneficial interest, you must disclose the nature of the beneficial interest before discussion or consideration of the matter commences. You must also physically absent yourself from the meeting until the matter is concluded. The disclosure and your absence will be recorded in the minutes of the meeting, and you should then inform the council's ethics registrar in writing after the meeting of the nature of the beneficial interest, so your register of interests can be updated. If you're to make a disclosure in advance of the meeting where you would not be present at the meeting, but if you were present, you would have had to make a disclosure. You should still advise the council's ethics registrar in advance of the meeting, and this disclosure will be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. Regarding planning legislation, members, you're reminded that in making a development plan, you are restricted to considering the proper planning and sustainable development of the area to which the plan relates, and to the statutory obligations of any local authority in the area and any relevant policies or objectives for the time being for the government and minister of the government. And just to reiterate what the Cathaoirleach has already said, meetings should not be recorded by anyone other than the meeting administrator. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. So we'll recommence from where we left off yesterday, which was the consideration of Tier 1 settlement of Drogheda. So I'll hand you back to Sean again to give an overview of where we were and take it from there. Thank you.
Thanks, Cathaoirleach. Yeah, yesterday we finished up on we've 6 notices of motion that are contained within the Chief Executive's report dated October 2020. We have an additional notice of motion which came from the floor, and that was submitted to all members yesterday evening via email. So we'll continue on with the 6 notices of motion that were received from the floor, and then we'll move on to the notice of motion contained within the Chief Executive's report. I'd just like to remind all members that within the southern environs of Drogheda, that is subject to a joint urban area plan once the Meath County Development Plan is adopted and the Louth County Development Plan is adopted. Background work is ongoing there at the minute, which will result in the publication of a strategic issues paper, which commences the formal process with regards to the joint urban area plan. The Chief Executive has recommended no change within the southern environs of Drogheda, and similarly when we get to Meath, you'll see the same, because that's subject to a joint urban area plan with Kildare County Council. And I suppose the reason no change is recommended with regards to the county development plan proposed is that any changes will arise as a result of the meetings discussed, the meetings involved for the joint urban area plan. So just to make it clear, I suppose, what went out on public display with regards to Drogheda and Meath was the plan that's currently in place, the 2013 to 2019 plan. Thank you, Cathaoirleach. And now, members, just to advise, we will resume at notice of motion number 89, which was from Councillor Paddy Meath.
So that motion, we need to get a seconder for the motion. So a second, Pádraig Fitzsimons. To Councillor Meath. Is Councillor Meath present?
Sorry, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach. So this motion is looking to change the zoning on a bit of land from E2/E3 to residential. Some councillors might consider this strange from me because across the plan, I have a lot of submissions. I think this is the only submission in where I'm looking to zone land residential. But I would say to people not to be afraid that I'm not looking to take away residential land in their town or district, but that in fact there is other land on the same map that is residential that I will be looking to remove the residential from. So looking at the map, this is the very dark purple segment, which is just on the Louth border, about an inch down from where the mouse just was, sorry, just up a bit. Yes, that's perfect. And to the right-hand side of it, people might be aware, is the Wolf Tones football pitch. They play in the Louth League, but they are in Meath. And to the left of it is a Louth housing estate. So that's in County Louth, Knockbrack Downs. And then in the Meath bit, you have Knightswood, and you have also Scribbles and Giggles preschool there, which some people might be aware of. So what my motion is looking to do is zone the outside of that land for 85 metres in along the border with the Louth houses and the Meath houses. And I suppose there's many reasons for doing this. One could be said that this is ideal residential land, better than some of the other residential land that would be on the map. And that on its own merit is a very good reason to do it. Others could be that it is proposed to make that general enterprise and employment, and potentially there would be big factories built along there, which when we go to do the joint plan with Louth County Council, we've already received correspondence from Louth residents that they're not happy about this idea, and they would be more welcoming to have houses along their border than the potential of a factory. So we should be conscious of that as well, that this is something that some Louth residents are looking for as well. In general, I do say that East Meath and Drogheda has far too many houses, that I worry about the school supply for the children that come out of these houses and facilities. And that's why I'm very clear that if we were to change the zoning on this little strip we would be taking it, I would be then in a later motion be proposing to take away residential from a different place. So the planners shouldn't be worried that we're looking more residential, or councillors shouldn't be worried that I'm looking to take away residential from their districts or their towns. It's simply, I think this would be a better location for some houses in the southern environs than in other places. Now, the officials have said that they're recommending no change and that we leave this till the joint plan. I can't counter that with the argument that I think we would be in bad footing if we went into the joint plan and us councillors and our officials weren't on the same page. So I think it's right that we get this fixed today, and then moving on from today, we go into the joint plan with a plan on the Meath side that both the officials and the councillors stand behind. So I thank my seconder of the motion, Councillor Parkford-Simons, and I put the motion to the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So after that, there's no one else has indicated. Oh, Councillor Tolan.
Thanks a million, Catherlough. Look, as I stated yesterday, we've spent a long time since the Drogheda boundary review working towards finally starting a joint urban area plan for Drogheda, Drogheda County Meath and Drogheda County Louth. We're all on the same page, as far as I'm aware, with chief executives and councillors, that we really want to sit down as soon as possible together to make a plan for the wider Drogheda area. And I think in the spirit of collaboration and, you know, the decision that was taken at ministerial level that a joint urban area plan and a joint urban area committee be established, that I think it's important we don't make any changes without those discussions taking place and without sitting down and giving the people of Drogheda Louth and Drogheda Meath an opportunity to have their say on how the largest town in Ireland will develop. So I won't be supporting any changes in the southern environs of Drogheda. I support the chief executive's decision on making no changes until we sit down to establish a joint urban area plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Just maybe it might be the time to maybe bring Sean back in and just to explain, because it'll be applicable when we're discussing Maynooth as well around the joint area plan or joint urban plan, just to give maybe just to refresh people's memories as to what the process involved in that is, so that when we're going through the next number of motions and any discussion around Maynooth also, just so people have that information in their armory before so the context of what we're talking about is explained. Thank you.
Yes, the National Planning Framework required a joint urban area plan with local authorities who had a shared boundary or shared town, such as Drogheda, for example, Maynooth in the case of Meath and Kildare. It's a very similar process to the local area plan. It will be a process which will see a strategic issues paper go on public display. Members of the community can make submissions. That will result then in a draft plan, which again goes on display, submissions again, and then any material changes go back out on public display. The proposal this time will be that it will be there would have been a local area plan done by both local authorities for the similar areas. Now it's a joint urban area plan. We have begun discussions with Louth County Council in terms of background discussions to prepare the joint urban area plan. You can't formally commence it until both county development plans are adopted. Ours being the 2021 to 2027 plan, and Louth have come off public display just prior to Christmas, as far as I understand, with their draft. So they're a little bit behind us, but once both local authorities have adopted their plans, you can then begin the formal process of commencing strategic issues paper and putting that on display. We'll carry out the same process with Kildare County Council in terms of Maynooth. And effectively, any changes resulting from the joint urban area plan will then be incorporated into your county development plan, and that will require a variation to your county development plan. As I said at the start of the meeting, the chief executive has left the draft plan with regards to southern environs of Drogheda and Maynooth as per the 2013 to 2019 plan, because we believe that the best time to discuss zoning and the matters relating to those areas is as part of the joint urban area plan and not as part of a draft plan. Thanks, Catherlough.
Thank you, Sean. So with that, obviously with Councillor Meath's motion, and also Councillor Harding. Councillor, if you could just unmute yourself, please.
My apologies, Cathaoirleach, and thank you. Just very briefly, in relation to what Sean has said, and he said it yesterday as well, and the joint urban plan between the two local authorities, I'm in agreement with Councillor Tolan's input into this, and we wait till we get that committee up and running and look into it at that stage, and then make amendments to our county development plan as is seen. I think that is the most prudent way of going about this at this present time.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McGinty.
Thank you very much. I welcome actually the movement of the joint area plan. It's great to hear. So with that in mind, I would be in favour of waiting until the outcome of that before we rezone any land from general enterprise, as Councillor Meath was saying. But hopefully during that meeting, you know, that can be re-examined again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Stephen McKee. Councillor, could you unmute yourself, please? Thank you.
Sorry. Look, I take on board the direction given from Sean there and the Chief Executive as well as, but I think it is important that we certainly lay down our own marker on our own county development plan and what we're doing in our own area. And I think it's important that we deal with the motions that we certainly set out our goals and objectives for our own area before we meet with anyone from Louth, that we have our position very clear from our own county development plan and from what we've decided ourselves. So I think it's important that we continue with the business of work that we're doing, and that we do what it's incumbent on us to do as councillors in County Meath, that we decide what we want to do in terms of zoning and so on and our objectives, and that we go into the meeting with Louth firmly decided upon that.
Thank you. Councillor Tobin. If you could unmute yourself, please, Councillor.
My apologies. And on the chat there is somebody commenting that, in my opinion, shouldn't be commenting on the chat on the Zoom call. I don't know if you're aware of that or not.
I'll just step in on that at that point. Again, I would draw everybody's attention to the key directions of the remote meetings, and as highlighted at the beginning of this meeting, it says no member of the public should attempt to speak or interrupt the meeting or interact with members of the council during the meeting. But again, remind all members of the public who are logged onto this meeting that that rule applies equally across the board to everybody. So that's there is, again, it's just if that happens again, obviously we'll have to apply the rules of the meeting again, but there is to be no interaction between members of the public with councillors for any reason during the course of this meeting, as would be the case should we be sitting in the chamber or should we be sitting in a hybrid meeting. It is absolutely contrary to the standing orders and the rules of our chamber. So thank you very much. Councillor Tobin.
Thanks a million. And that may highlight that there could be interaction between individuals and the person themselves. But anyway, just my query is just with the planners on this particular thing here. My fear would be if the particular land that's zoned industrial happened to get a planning permission in and the time taken to do the local area plan for Drogheda. So I'm just wondering, what are the types of timescales for that? And would it be prudent then to de-zone it altogether pending the joint area plan? I would be, though, in agreement with Councillor Meath and Councillor McKee of laying down a marker and us getting on with our side. It was very, very apparent when we did meet that time over when County Louth were trying to take part of County Meath, that we were very, very much more aware of what was happening in the Drogheda Environs, much better planning, and I don't see why we should stand still waiting for Louth to come on board. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Just before bringing Councillor Meath back in, maybe Sean might be able to throw some light on the timescale as requested. Councillor Meath, we might.
Thank
Oh,
you.
sorry, Councillor Bonner. We'll bring you in last, Councillor, as your mover of the motion. Councillor Bonner. If you could unmute yourself, please, Councillor.
Excuse me.
Thank you.
Just in relation to the text that are flying across the screen, has that person got permission to be at the meeting? I don't see them on in the participation or in the. Where are these texts coming from?
That is just due to the nature of the members of the public participation, they can view the meeting, but should not be interacting with the meeting.
But are they logged? Are their names?
They're logged in. Yeah, they're recorded. They're recorded and registered.
Are their names up in the participation board? Because I don't see.
Yes, yes, they should be. They are.
Yeah, they're not. I can't see it. But it's just that, like, no, they're still coming across the screen. So there's an issue with that. All right, I don't want to hog to me, but
no, but I understand.
Yeah, okay, I've said me that. All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. And again, that again, that is something that can't be acceptable, is not acceptable, and can't be tolerated. So should that happen again, a person will be asked to will be removed from the meeting. Councillor Tolan.
Thanks, Caherlick, for letting me back in there. I suppose it's important to point out this is not about setting down markers or County Meath deciding what's best for County Meath. We agreed and we had direction from the Minister that we would collaborate with Louth County Council and the councillors, their elected reps as well, to ensure that the proper development of Drogheda, both Drogheda County Meath and Drogheda County Louth, that it's developed properly. And I think it's important that we don't take this attitude. I'm quite surprised to hear some contributions. I think I could probably share a link to a number of articles where people have called for collaboration between the two councils. Now is our opportunity to collaborate properly and see the town developed in a proper manner and developed in a collaborative way in the best interests of the citizens we serve and they serve. And I think that is important that we remain on that page. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McKee. Again, Councillor, I would ask you to turn on your microphone, please.
Yeah, sorry, just like to come back in there, please. Look, collaboration is obviously very important because we share a town boundary with another county. But I think, having said that, it's still extremely important that we do our own business in our own county. I mean, at least one of my motions there actually will directly affect potentially in the short term hundreds of jobs. You know, I have one motion in there in relation to Nature's Best, a major local employer in our area. I don't think it's responsible on any of us to be delaying what we should be doing ourselves or waiting for someone else to do our business for us. So I think it's very important that we move on. We lay down whatever language you want to use, laying down a marker, but we just simply do the business that we have to do in our own area. And as I said, they're very important motions that are down. At least one of mine is one that affects a major local employer. So I certainly think it's important that we do what we need to do. Thanks.
Okay, so we're going to go to Councillor McGinn.
Sorry. Kirloch, could I come in?
We just need to indicate with a raised hand, Councillor Behan.
Apologies, I don't have that function on the computer I'm using for whatever reason. All I can do is do the thumbs up or the clap. So I just haven't got the raised hand function on this desktop.
Oh, if you use your thumbs up function, we'll understand that to be the raised hand. Is that okay?
I had pressed it, but I just wasn't sure if you saw it.
Yeah, sorry. So if we keep
thank you, and I appreciate that. I just wanted to come in and say that I do fully support the Chief Executive's recommendation on this. I think it's too great a decision for us to make. I know we have to, as Councillor McKee said, we have to do our own business, but again, when it has ramifications for both sides of the county, I think it's something that should be left to the committee to decide. So in that instance, I'll be fully supporting the Chief Executive's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, maybe we might just get clarification as that the reference to the committee, because it was explained yesterday, and maybe anybody who missed it, that there will be a process involved here that will include, maybe Sean, if you just want to explain that where the councillors will have an opportunity to feed into the process.
Thanks, Ciarán. Yes, as said yesterday, and just to reiterate what some of the members have said today, it is a collaborative process between Louth County Council and Meath County Council. It's a formal process. It follows the same structure really as the county development plan in terms of public consultation, etc. And it is time bound. So once you commence the process with a strategic issues paper, the clock starts. Now, we can't obviously commence that process until we have a county development plan adopted and we know where our ground is. And similarly, when Louth County Council have their plan adopted, and they're a couple of weeks behind us, I suppose, in the process. So we should both be coming out the same, roughly at the same time. We are doing background work, housing strategy studies, transport studies, etc. in the meantime, that will form part of the strategic issues paper. We did outline yesterday as well that all of these notices of motion, all the discussions taken part today and yesterday can also form part of the strategic issues paper, or the studies into the strategic issues paper and the issues that are being raised as part of it. But it is a collaborative process. What I would say as well is the Chief Executive has recommended no change, partly because you could give a false expectation to a landowner now. If we amend zoning on lands now, that land is back up for discussion when the joint urban area plan takes place. So within a year's time, we will be discussing those lands again. So you could give a false expectation to a landowner that you've amended the zoning on a land, but that's only temporary until the joint urban area plan, which will take precedence over it and will result in a variation of your county development plan. And it's for that reason that the Chief Executive has decided that the draft plan that went on public display is as per the zoning in the 2013 to 2019 Meath County Development Plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. So we're going to go back to Councillor Meath now to close out the discussion. And the reason that there was an additional time spent on this motion is just because of the subsequent motions that are coming. A lot of the discussion will be similar, and it's important that we start. Pádraig, you just want to come in there as well, just before Councillor Meath.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, and maybe just to follow on from what Sean has said, if we maybe summarise what notices of motion we have both received in November, that we have recently received, and the submissions relating to South Drogheda. We have been consistent, and the Chief Executive's recommendations are consistent throughout the report. And they're consistent in that there are some amendments to South Drogheda, but they mainly relate to policy and objectives. The only exceptions to the Chief Executive's recommendations are some zoning. And the zoning was changed on the basis of planning permissions that have since been granted at the COLP. And Alan is just highlighting on the map there, if you can see it, that one of the permissions granted related to that sort of purple area that appears on your map, which is an office development that was granted planning permission for Shannon Homes for a distributor road and for a large office development. It was previously granted on white lands, and we previously had some discussion earlier in the plan process about white lands, that developments such as commercial job generating activities can be granted on white lands as per the zoning matrix within the development plan. What we are simply doing here is regularizing the permission that has been granted and given it the appropriate zoning for which is granted planning permission. So there was two of them. The purple one refers to a large commercial development for office development, quite similar to Southgate. And the other one, the sort of mustard colour that's beside it, refers to a temporary national school that was granted planning permission also on the same body of land. They are the only zonings that we have changed in the via the Chief Executive's report and the recommendations. Consistently, we have same message that all the other zonings and other issues should be left until the joint urban area plan. I also acknowledge Councillor McKee's two submissions which he has in, which are both refer their transportation issues. There's a park and ride proposal, spot objective, and there's a train station objective. The comments on those is that they're very much guided by the transportation study, and to actually, it would be considered premature to actually make such designations on this map and in this plan until the transportation study is complete. The one other exception, it also relates to Councillor McKee's submission, is the one he has just referred to, is the zoning which relates to nature's best. Now, I suppose these are exceptions. They're not relating to residential zoning, and they're related to jobs. If the members wish to discuss those further, you know, that's up to yourselves. And I can advise on the submission Alan is just highlighting on the map where nature's best factory is and the land to which that norm refers. So I'll just pass it back and we can advise on each, but it is important to emphasise that we've been consistent in the recommendations that we don't change the zonings apart from what I've just highlighted. Thank you.
Thank you, Pádraig. Councillor Keoghan.
Oh, hi, Cahira, can you hear me?
Yes.
I would like to support the Chief Executive's recommendations and look forward to working with Louth and Meath Executive in the future regarding that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Meath.
Thank you, Cahira. It's been an interesting debate, and just quickly I'll clarify a few things. I am one of the representatives of Ayr County on EMRAD, Eastland Midlands Regional Authority. I'm the only person that sits there from the Drogheda area, and I work there very hard for the people of Drogheda, and collaboration can be seen by the boots and the effort that I put into that. I have made submissions to the Louth County Development Plan, and I am happy to say even some of them were accepted, as surprising as that might sound when we meet here today. I take this very serious. This is very important. But let's be clear. If my motion is not passed, a map still gets sent into Louth. It still goes in, but just it mightn't be the bits, things that we want on that map mightn't be on it. We should send in the map as us, the councillors, feel is best to do. Arguments can be made that transport studies and all other studies should be carried out, but us, the councillors, live in the area. We know the area, we know the lands, we know quite often where applications are coming from and where they were going. To answer Councillor Tobin's question, I believe there is no plans for a planning permission to go on that site between now and May. To give false hope to other landowners, well, the other side of that can be said, there is land that is on this map that I wish to see unzoned. It would be wrong to give the owners of that land false hope for the next few months, thinking his land was going to stay zoned, when in fact the majority of the councillors in the area and perhaps the county wouldn't want it. So it would be better if we as councillors use our reserve functions today and make decisions today. And at least, and I will accept, if I lose votes, I lose votes. But at least then we go into the meeting with Louth and we go into the next stages of this with a plan that is supported by the councillors. If the councillors, as appear to be saying, is that they just want to wait to the next stage, but they're not saying that they support this map. When we're finished this debate, be it today or tomorrow, this should be a map that every councillor in our district is proud of. This should be a map that represents what we want to see in South Drogheda in the next 6 or 7 years. If we think houses should go in a location, if we think industry should go in a location, that's what we should do. As I say, I'm looking to put a bit of residential here, but I'm looking to take it away from another area where I'm hoping to see a park and a really good amenity for the people of Drogheda. And one cancels out the other in the fear that other councillors may have about their towns and districts. So I do wish to progress with this. I do think this is warranted. And I even think that the officials would agree that when we sit down with County Louth, if we go into that room with all the officials and all the councillors from the area on the same page, it would be a better scenario. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move to the actual vote on this motion. Again, just to go back over what it is you're going to be asked. As with every motion to date, and the process is we try to be consistent at all times. You will be asked, firstly, do you agree with the recommendation of the Chief Executive? So in this instance, the Chief Executive's recommendation is that there's no change. Based on the discussion that you would have heard today, I'd ask you whether you agree or disagree with that recommendation. Initially, you'll be asked to indicate if you agree, and then I will ask to put the question separately if anybody is in a disagreement. So what we'll do first is, and I would ask you, again, we'll try this, we tried it yesterday, It was mixed, so we went to a roll call vote to ensure that we were accurate. But what we can do is, I'm going to ask if you could indicate, by virtue of the fact, by raising your hand, using the raised hand icon only, with the exception of Councillor Behan, who can do a thumbs up, whether you agree with the recommendation of the Chief Executive of no change. So I'll ask you if you could indicate if you agree now, please. And just keep them there till I ask you to take them down, please. Thank you. And Councillor Bean is a thumbs up. Yeah. Okay, 16. Now, what we're going to do is ask you to take down that icon, and if you disagree, if you could indicate your disagreement with the Chief Executive's recommendation. So that's 16 for and 7 against. So the recommendation stands. Okay, thank you very much. If you could take down your hand. So with that, we move on to motion number 92. Am I right? Yeah, motion number 92. No, number 90, sorry, 90. Councillor Meath. Do you have a seconder for that? Councillor Toole, are you indicating you wish to speak or second that? Councillor, if you switch on your microphone, please. Thank you. If you switch on your microphone, please, Councillor.
Yes, apologies,
Yeah.
Catherine.
Thank you.
I'm just having difficulty removing the raised hand function, so I'm not actually seconding the motion just at the minute until I sort out my few icon difficulties. Thank you.
No problem, no problem. So, it's Councillor McKee, you seconding that? Excellent. Okay, so Councillor Meath. Did you wish to speak, Councillor, too?
Yeah.
No. Okay. Councillor Meath.
Thank you, Catherine, and thank you for allowing the debate on the last one, though I respect it, I lost the vote. So, as people will be aware from looking at the map of Drogheda, Drogheda is the only regional growth town in our county. It is a considerable town with a considerable population in County Meath. And what might surprise a lot of people is that in that entire region in County Meath, there is no playground. Not a single one. And people may remember the battle I fought for Lobenstown to get a playground, and a playground which is now heavily used. But this is a much significant bigger area. Some people may be aware that at one time Stameen was in County Meath before it went into County Louth, and there was a playground there, but following an incident, that playground was took away. So there was no playground in the area. And I desperately believe that there should be not only one, but there should be two, given the size of the area and the population that's in it. I acknowledge, however, from the vote that just took place on my previous motion, that while councillors may agree with the sentiment of my motions, they do not wish to change the development plan. So I would like my opposition to this noted. But I am happy for you to move on to the manager's report. But I would like my opposition to this noted, because I believe we should have these debates today. I believe we should make these decisions today. But I understand I am in the minority now with that opinion. So to save time, I'm happy for you to move on, but I do want my strong opposition to this noted. And if any other councillor wants their opposition noted, maybe just do that.
We can do that too, councillor. Thank you very much. Councillor McKee, you seconded the motion. Councillor Meath, are you withdrawing that motion?
Yeah, but I want the opposition notice.
Okay, so you're withdrawing the motion. That's okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. And of course, the debate that was with motion 90 was well worth it, and I think it set the context for our subsequent conversation about South Drogheda, I think. So motion number 91, Councillor Meath, do you have a seconder for that? Again, if we could ask whoever is doing some construction work in the background, if you could mute your microphone. If you
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor, do we have a seconder for that motion, please? If you could raise your hand. Councillor McGinty, thank you. So Councillor Meath.
Thank you, Cahirlock. This motion is very much a reminiscence of the debate we had yesterday in regards to creating a new road. People who are not familiar, maybe as much with Drogheda, may know that besides St Oliver's Secondary School, there has been a large development by Glenveigh Homes. This is beside Highlands, and there is a site beside that where even a development twice the size is proposed. And this has put excess traffic onto an area of Drogheda, which in turn has made the Rathmullen Road, some will know it as the road that the LMFM studio is on, very busy. And in turn, it brings a lot of traffic all the way down that road, with people trying to access the M1 to get to Dublin or to Belfast every day. There's a strong belief that if we have the IDA Park, there is a new Amazon data center being built there, which is a really good development. But that if the road into the IDA Park was to be extended to come out at the edge of if people see where Sheep House is written, roughly where the S on the Sheep House is. So if the road was basically to go from that S down to the IDA roundabout, which you can see in the middle of the pink, if you were to connect that, you would in turn take an awful lot of the traffic off the Rathmullen area. And you would allow the houses out of the new Glenveigh development, the Highlands, and what other potential developments there may be down there, even though I may be opposed to them said developments. But it would take an awful lot of that traffic out of the Rathmullen Road. It would free up, people would be familiar maybe with the Thatch pub and know of the long delays and traffic there. So it would take all of that out. It would also, for this area where there's meant to be industry, it would be really good for that area in that it give access, and potentially we could get more jobs into that area. And I suppose there would be a feeling in that area that while we might be sad the data centers don't bring more jobs, but down the Highland side, there's a real fear of excess houses and that traffic, which currently, which is quite funny to some people, they can be quicker to go from Sheep House to the M1. Instead of going through Drogheda, it can be to go out through rural roads in rural Dunor, past the road to past Dunor graveyard. And so it'd be taking that traffic hopefully all away. So this wouldn't be just a good thing for Drogheda, it would be a good thing for the kind of Sheep House rural area as well. And I see no reason. I'm not looking for millions of euro to be allocated to this project today. I'm just looking for it to be put down as an objective, effectively a red dotted line, like we saw yesterday, to be put onto the map in this area. And I think it's something that could be very beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We just bring in Des. Des, if you just unmute yourself, please.
Apologies. Thanks, Cahirlock. Sean and Pádraig have gone through the detail of the upcoming Drogheda urban plan, and as part of that, a transportation study will be undertaken, and work is going to start on that very shortly in advance of the strategic issues paper that will issue when the two county development plans are adopted. And a number of motions yesterday and today touch on transportation issues, which are obviously going to be a key feature of this urban area plan for Drogheda. A lot of the issues in Drogheda do centre around transportation, and they're mentioned there in a number of motions, be it the park and ride facility, be it a new train station, new roads, the subject of this particular motion. And there was even mention yesterday of the requirements for a new bridge in Drogheda. And I suppose the point being made in the Chief Executive's recommendation is that we should await the transportation study being done, which will fully assess and carry out all the necessary reports around the transportation issues. And that will fully inform the council and the councillors and Louth County Council on what the issues are and then what the recommendations should be. So that is the recommendation, to await that transportation study, which is about to commence. Thanks, Cahirlook.
Thank you, Des. So what we might do is to maybe make a, what we suggest that there will be an opportunity for these motions to be formally submitted to the local area plan or the joint urban area plan at that time. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
So perhaps that would be the correct forum to do that. I understand that the Councillor Meath wants and Councillor McKee feel it's, and other members feel it's important that we go in with these issues already flagged into the joint urban discussion. So I'll ask Councillor Meath if that's something that he will be prepared to do.
Yeah, with respect to the officials and to yourself, Ciara, we've been working on the county development plan for 2 years. The traffic study, if you came to many of our district meetings, at a recent district meeting, it was brought up about the traffic onto the Nor Road. The councillors in the area, I'm sure Councillor Elaine McGinty can testify to traffic issues around Drogheda, which she'll know maybe better than myself or others. There's no reason why traffic studies shouldn't have been carried out prior to the county development plan or at early stages in the county development plan. I think to delay this at this stage would be wrong. Again, as I stress, I am not looking for millions of euro today to be allocated for this project, but I do believe it should be put down as an objective. I do believe a red dotted line should be put across that map. And I do believe it is strongly in the benefit of rural Donor and West Drogheda, Southwest Drogheda, to have this done. So while I respect and I welcome that a traffic study has been done, I sadly believe that it could be done a lot quicker. And if you just went to visit Drogheda today, many people on the street could tell you where the new roads are required. And they have elected us, their elected councillors, to carry this message in. And that's what we believe we're doing today. So I would ask that we progress.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. So we're going to, I'm going to put the question to everybody again. So just to go through, if you could take your hands down, please, Des and Councillor Meath. So we're going to ask the same question. So the recommendation in response to Councillor Meath's motion number 91 is that no change is recommended. So you will be asked initially, do you agree with that recommendation? And then,
sorry, can the rest of us come in and give our point or
again,
yeah,
as we,
sorry,
McGinty, Councillor McGinty, yeah. So generally, as a rule, you would indicate that you wish to speak.
I did. I had my hand up. Sorry, maybe you didn't see it. I just
no,
again.
It flags here. So traditionally, but Councillor, sorry. Traditionally, the last word is given back to the mover of the motion, and that's why I went straight back to Councillor Meath on that. So your indication.
I took it down, but it was up. Sorry, when I seconded it, I thought you were coming back to me. So
okay, Councillor, on this occasion, just it's okay, it's okay. So what we'll do is what on this occasion, just again, so people can remember that it's important that when we get back to the mover of the motion, the discussion is closed. But on this occasion, you can, as a seconder, of course, you can have an opportunity to comment, and then we will be moving to the vote. Thank you.
Right. I second this motion because I live near it and I've worked in this area. The data centre, Councillor Meath is right. It's being built there at the moment, and Glen Bay Homes is those houses are about to come on stream. There's extreme concern about the traffic around St. Oliver's School, but not only that, the fire station for Drogheda is on this road. It's actually so urgent, it can't wait. The traffic on that road, I have seen it, I've been on it when the fire engines come out and there's an accident on the M1. This estate, when it comes on board and these cars are it's built, it's nearly ready to roll, it's going to have a huge impact on the roads around that area. Not to mention St. Oliver's School is up near 1,300 students at this stage, and you've all those traffic. It's such a narrow road. It seems a very good solution, I have to say. it's something that could be done quite well, quite easily, and allow that whole side of town to be connected. It's from living here and working in this actually is just so logical, and it would take immediate pressure off. I understand what Des has said about a plan and a transport plan coming on board, but this can't come quick enough because there's too many strategic things for the town, such as the fire station, such as St. Oliver's School. LMFM's there, you have the Leisureplex where the swimming pool is. There's an awful lot of amenities with an awful lot of traffic that side of town. And as soon as this development comes on board and there's further applications in for further housing, I see, you know, it's going to add more to it. And there's already, Rathmullen is very built up there. Just the roads aren't able to take it. This was an ideal solution, and it would open up all the land across there. So I support it. Even if it is a dotted line, it really will make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Tolan.
Thanks, Catherlough. I fully agree with absolutely everything Councillor McGinty has just said. However, I can't see, but then I'm not a transport expert. I can't see how the provision of that section of a road to the other end of Drogheda would relieve the pressure on the Rathmullen Road. I would need transport experts to show me how they would change direction or why they would change direction. You know, I can't see how people would go off into an industrial estate to access their homes on the other side of Drogheda then. So I mean, I do think that the onus is on a transport study to provide. So I'm going to suggest perhaps that instead of the motion put down, if it was an agreement with the chief executive to perhaps include an objective to explore the feasibility of the provision of a road in conjunction with Louth County Council as part of the joint urban area plan. That would be my suggestion on the out. If not, I will have to vote against the motion. But I totally understand the sentiment and the reasoning behind it. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Harding. Then we'll go to Porrick, and then we'll go to Paddy, and we will finish this. We'll go to Councillor Meath, yes, and then we will finish. Then we're going to go, unless there's an agreement that's come to by everybody here, we're going to go to a vote on this based on what the full conversation that we're after having on this. So, Councillor Harding.
Thank you. Just to come in, I wasn't going to because I thought the way we had been moving towards the joint urban plan, that this would become, and I fully understand Councillor McGinty's contribution because I'm chair of the Board of Management in St. Oliver's, the 1,400 pupil school. It's huge. I know all the pinches. If you go down a little further, my 14-year-old plays with Drogheda United on Marley's Lane, LMFM, the swimming pool, and all these houses. There's no question or doubt about it. And the junction at the Bridge of Peace is one of the most horrible junctions that we go to. The sentiment of the motion, I have absolutely no problem with, but I would again go that this is all prior to the collaboration that Councillor Tolan referred to, that we talked about for so long, that we all talk about, that it must be Meath and Louth's local authorities get all of Drogheda right for the two counties that use the town.
Thank you, Councillor. I think there's not a councillor in this room that's not familiar with where LMFM is. So what we might do is go to Porrick there.
Thank you, Chair. I think the first point, and it's just a reiteration of, this is one of a number of roads, and in relation to traffic problems that exist in both North and South Drogheda that will be considered as part of the transportation study. However, there's a couple of key points and we need to look at. Putting a line on a map has implications. There is environmental assessment and different other transport assessments required to be carried out. But there's a key point here, regardless of whether we put a line on a map, how will it assist in alleviating those traffic problems? Number one, it's going to be a developer-led approach, i.e. whoever owns the land will have to develop it, because it is not listed in a capital programme and won't be until such times as the transportation study is complete and the joint urban area plan is done. So that's a key point. It is a developer-led road, and until a developer comes forward on the strategic employment site north of State Street and Amazon, and at the moment and at this point in time, we have no pre-planning discussions with any developer on such lands that extends on up towards the Rathmullen Road. Another issue is to look at the status of the road. What is the role and function of a road which is suggested here? Is it a local road? Is it part of a ring road? Is it a distributor road? Because they all have different functions, and they will attract different types of traffic, and therefore that determines. So the role and function of the road is important, and it essentially determines the status of the road. None of this has been predetermined. None of it we know at this point. And I think there's nobody argues that there are certainly traffic problems, and our transportation section are well aware of them. And in planning and in dealing with planning applications, many of these have been teased out both within Meath County Council and with Board Penola relating to strategic housing developments. So everybody recognises that there is an issue, there are traffic issues in this area. But simply putting a line on a map and putting a potential distributor road up through a business park, which is currently being developed, a large data centre beside it, and I've no doubt a large data centre would have an issue with a large distributor road running up through it. Similarly, is it appropriate to have a large road that we're not sure of its function going through an industrial estate and up through a strategic employment site? So these are the types of issues that we need clarified, discussed and teased out further. And the only forum for doing that is the transportation study. And I think it's very important to point out that we're not against the principle of a road, a north-south road here. It's where it is and what's its role and function in terms of the strategic movement of traffic in southern environs of Drogheda, and indeed that leads up to northern environs. So we currently don't know at this time, and it's not that we're against the road or we're kicking the can down the road. We have a study commenced starting in Q1 this year and will feed into the local area plan, and I don't think that's kicking the can down the road. It's appropriate that these investigations are done within the appropriate document. Thank you.
Thank you, Pádraig. Councillor Meath, to bring this to a culmination again.
Thank you, and I'll try to answer some of Pádraig's questions. What I will stress to all the councillors and the officials, I submitted this motion over a year ago at the very first stage of the county development plan, and at that stage we should have been entitled to have this debate, and at that stage, if these studies were required, the council should have took them. Though as they were not took, I hope that you will take heed of what the local councillors for the area are saying. So straight off, the road will take Riverbank Highlands, the Glenveigh new development, the land that the council is proposing to zone down there, which doubles the entire of the rest of it. It'll take all of that population off the Rathmullen Road. It'll ease up the traffic on the Dunor Road out of Drogheda, outside the Thatch pub where people can't get on the bus, where there's massive hold-ups. It'll take all of that away. In relation to what Councillor Tolan said about a joint project bid with Meath and Louth, why would Louth pay for a project? The road is entirely in County Meath. It's a Meath road. And again, I would stress you've had over a year to look at this, but if you want, I can meet you on that site tomorrow, or you can talk to Councillor McGinty. It's very obvious to anyone who goes out there that this is needed. Councillor Harden, I respect your view that you think everything should be pushed dealt with at the joint plan, but you agree that this road could be beneficial, and I welcome that. So I hope the rest of the councillors will simply acknowledge that nobody, not even the officials, are saying that it's a bad idea to put the road there. I don't mind if it is. It probably will end up being developer-led until such times as we can get it onto a capital plan. But if so, that's okay with me. It's still a progression, and so I'm happy. I hope the councillors can see merit here. We're just trying to make Drogheda a better place for the people of County Meath and Louth.
Thank you, Councillor. So now what we're going to do is, again, just before we move on any further, and to remind everybody that if you wish to speak on a motion, please make sure that you're that I don't miss your indication, but because for the future motions, when I get to the mover of the motion again, the discussion is finished. I just want to be very clear on that. And it's not aimed at anybody, it's aimed at everybody. So that's just something from a procedural point of view. Just so what we're going to do is we're going to move to the vote now. And the vote, as with all votes, the question will be, do you agree or disagree with the Chief Executive's recommendation? The Chief Executive's recommendation in this instance is that no change is recommended. So when you're asked to do so, please indicate using your raised hand function icon, please, if you can, or the thumbs up icon if that's something that's only available to you. And I ask you to vote or to suggest, are you in agreement with the recommendation of the Chief Executive? And please leave your hand up until you're asked to take it down. Oh, sorry, hold on. And me. Okay, if you take down your indication, and I'd ask you now to please indicate that you disagree with the Chief Executive's recommendation. Okay.
Coherent.
Yes? If you could take down your hands, please.
Yeah, just clarification. I think, I'm not sure if I removed my hand. I agreed with the manager's report, just for clarification.
Yeah, your hand did indicate that your hand is still up, Councillor.
Yeah, I know.
So could you take it down, please?
So is that, but have I clarified that
You've clarified it now, yeah? Your intention is to support the manager's report. Okay.
Thank you. As I did in the initial one as well.
15 agree, 9 disagree.
Okay. So if everybody could take their hands down, please. So it's 15 in agreement with the Chief Executive's recommendation and 9 disagree with the Chief Executive's recommendation. So the Chief Executive's recommendation has been accepted. Okay, thank you very much. We move on to motion number 91. 92. Councillor Stephen McKee. Do we have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Meath.
Yeah.
Councillor McKee.
Yeah, well, this motion relates to a spot objective that I've put in for land use zoning in on lands east of Cope, beside Southgate Shopping Centre, as being suitable for a park and ride facility and other transport related uses. These lands beside Southgate certainly have the potential. A park and ride facility here has a potential to provide local residents with access to public transport services to and from Dublin, and obviously to and from Drogheda. At the moment, the car parks in Southgate are being used in a very ad hoc way, and it's actually negatively impacting on Southgate, where there are important local businesses and possibly future local businesses will need to set up. There's over 400 office workers in Southgate, and there is a serious issue up there, not only with workers in Southgate, but also people accessing other public transport, for example, Matthews coaches and so on. The use of Southgate is having a negative impact on local residents. It's impacting on the workers in Southgate, and there is certainly a demand, a growing demand for some sort of park and ride facility in the area. The lack of adequate affordable parking at Drogheda train station, Drogheda bus station, limiting factor for those wishing to access public transport and who don't live within walking distance of the station. A park and ride at this location on the edge of Drogheda will provide an opportunity to serve the people of East Meath with shuttle services into and around Drogheda. And in particular as well, it will certainly benefit to creation of further employment at Southgate and in the immediate future as well. So I do put it to the floor that this would be a very important spot objective for that particular area, and it certainly will assist not only local residents and commuters, but also really assist in the possibility of the creation of new jobs at Southgate in the very near future as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Meath.
Thank you, Ciarán. I'm very happy to second Councillor Stephen McKee's very good motion. And it is twofold, as he's touched on. Not only is it for the traffic going to Dublin, and there's a lot of that. Remember, Drogheda, the second biggest town in County Meath, no bus station on the south side out from the central station. So there is serious traffic going to Dublin. That should be considered. But also there's the potential, as the country goes more bus friendly and less car friendly, that people from the Southgate area, Mornington area, could park their car there and get the bus into the town of Drogheda and back out, stopping and starting at Southgate using the shops there. So it would have a positive impact, not just on bringing commuters to work in Dublin, but also potentially shopping in Drogheda. This should really be encouraged. There's no reason why we should be against this. And to the councillors who are not familiar with Drogheda, I just stressed to you, biggest town in Ireland, no bus station, park and ride facilities on the south side. You know, it's quite remarkable. Really, there should be one on that side, and there probably should be one under the North Road out to the M1 as well. But we're discussing this one today, and it really should be supported. And it is twofold. It's not just for everyone going to Dublin. I welcome that Councillor McKee has highlighted the fact of people going into Drogheda as well. It'd be very useful there. And I think everyone should support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Tolan.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach, and just, I suppose, for those that don't know the area terribly well, we have a fantastic bus service in and out to Drogheda every 15 minutes into the shopping areas and past Southgate, and fantastic service provided for almost 2 years now. Just to say that my understanding is that the reason there isn't the Chief Executive is recommending no change is because it's already in the draft county development plan. During the pre-draft discussions that we had, I had a motion number 92 to ask for a new objective to support the delivery of an additional train station in the southern environs of Drogheda as part of the future joint urban plan and as part of the DART expansion works to Drogheda through the planned electrification of the Northern Rail line. Obviously, we've already had the good news that the DART will be expanded and the electrification of the line will be expanded out to Drogheda. That is proceeding quite quickly, thankfully. And not only, you know, have I included or gotten included the objective for a train station in Bettystown, but also to explore, and it is movement objective 7, to explore the feasibility of a train station in conjunction with the Irish Rail and Louth County Council as part of the joint urban area plan. So this is already in the county development plan, which is why the Chief Executive has recommended no change. It is something that we will be exploring the feasibility of when a DART is finally running out this area. It will be able to stop at more short notice, such as Laytown, Bettystown, South Drogheda, and then Drogheda and possibly North Drogheda as well. So look, I'll be supporting the Chief Executive's recommendation on this one as well, but only because it's already there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So what we'll do is we'll go back to Councillor McKee now.
Yeah, I'd just like to point out in the Chief Executive's report, this is actually the first time. So I'd just like to correct Councillor Tolan on that. This is the first time that actually this has appeared as a motion, because it's a very specific motion. It's not relating to train stations or anything else. It's relating specifically to a spot objective of a park and ride facility at Cope. And this has never before been submitted by any other councillor up to now. And it's acknowledged by the Chief Executive if you look at her response. And what's very important about this, as Paddy Mead mentioned there, about the importance of the commuter, the issues in and out of Drogheda, it's a vital interest to Southgate Shopping Centre as a very important local employer. So it's twofold in relation for commuter issues, people going in and out of Drogheda, going to Dublin. But it's not just that. This is a very important spot objective for Southgate as a very, very important local business centre of big business. We you know, we've a lot of businesses in that. They employs over 300 people in Southgate, and I would like to let all the councillors know there's huge potential for more employment in that area in Southgate. And part of that reasoning behind why I've tabled this motion is the importance of the spot objective of the transport car parking facility at Southgate. I can't say any more than that, but it's a very important objective that needs to be met if we're to encourage employment to Southgate. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you. I would appreciate support on this motion. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor. So what we're going to do is we're going to move to a vote on this now. So bearing in mind all the information that you received during the course of that debate.
Look, I'm not adding to the debate. Just a procedural matter I want to raise. I'm just slightly confused. Would it be better? Look, you're doing a good job. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just slightly confused about who's voting, and I had my hand raised. It didn't come down. Would it be better for a roll call? I'm asking you, look, I'm for clarity and what members think, but I'm fine. Just for the environment we're
I understand. I absolutely understand, Councillor, and that's why everybody who's participating needs to participate in a very conscious manner. We're asking people to vote at a certain time to try and take their hand down. Now that flagged the fact that and I appreciate the fact that you indicated yourself. But if the room feels that we need to go to a roll call vote on every vote, I'm going to ask the room. Thank you. If you feel that we should go to a roll call vote because it's creating, could you raise your hand, Councillor, with regards to the raised hand function, Councillor McCabe,
Look, I haven't got, similar to Councillor Behan, I haven't got the raised hand function. Do you have
the thumbs up function? Do you have any function at the bottom?
I have the thumbs up function, all right, yeah, but I just want to support.
But we had indicated that as an acceptable means of communication.
Yeah, I just want to support Councillor Harding's call there. I just find that system it's open to too much confusion, and I would ask that we move to roll call votes.
Okay. What we're going to do is, in the past, as when we were in the chamber, just again to set the context as to why we're doing it this way, initially without going to a roll call vote immediately, in the chamber we didn't count votes at all. We just said agreed or not agreed. Only when they become very tight is it a situation like when there's a clear majority, then it's felt as a clear majority within the room. But if it looks like there's not clear or any ambiguity around the decision of the room, we were going to move to a roll call. If people feel we should move to a roll call on every decision that we make, we can do that too. So I'm only going to allow people in on this point, not further to the discussion on the vote itself. So Councillor Tolan.
Yeah, just to say it is very efficient the way you're doing things and the hands up to vote. It's just not very transparent, I suppose, is the point that both Councillor McCabe and Councillor Harding are making. We're not aware of who has voted and in what way. So whereas when we're in the room and somebody puts their hand up, it's clear to us who has voted what way. So it's very efficient. It's just not very transparent for the rest of us.
Okay.
You can see everybody, but just we can't, I suppose.
Okay, that's a fair point. Councillor Meath.
Thank you, Cahir. Look, I'm very conscious that I have about 50 motions down in this entire plan, and that takes a lot of time and there's a lot of voting. And that's why I think the hand tool is good, because it speeds up the thing. But I just want clarity. Is a record then being kept by yourselves on who voted for what?
Again, when we're going to a roll call vote, then there's a record kept of who's voting which way. As with any other vote that would have taken in the room, should it be in the chamber or a hybrid, if there's a clear majority indicating their support one way or another, we didn't have a recorded message. We just recorded a per person vote. It was indicated that there was broad support within the chamber. Again, this goes back to Councillor Harding's point, and perhaps we just have a listen to Councillor Toole first, our contribution, and then we'll sum up. Then we'll make a decision around voting, and then we will stick to that decision, because we'll take the opportunity to discuss it maybe a little bit at length now at the moment. So, Councillor Toole.
Thank you, Cahir. Similar point, so it's the cumulative number of raised hands each time, whether in agreement or disagreement, not the actual names attached to the hands.
Yes, that's how we proceeded when we had the broad agreement within the chamber at our hybrid point. when we were sitting in that. Once there was a clear indication as to the majority, we didn't record the names of how people voted, as you will recall. So it's when there's a tight vote or people feel that it's a vote that needs to move to a roll call vote, and only at that time are the individual votes of the individual councils recorded. So that has always been the case. It varies in no other way. This is not a new departure. This is the way we have always done business, as for as long as I've been in the chamber anyway.
I didn't recall. That's why I asked the question, but thank you for the clarification.
Councillor Fox? Yeah.
Can you hear me there?
Yes.
Yeah, just, I mean, I think a roll call is probably, in the circumstances we're in with Zoom meetings, it's probably more transparent, because when none of us can see who's voting what way, or it's causing a bit of confusion, I think. So, I mean, for that reason alone, normally we'd be all there and we just put our hands up and it'd be grand, everyone would see and you can count them. But I think just for the way we're operating, I think probably is the problem. I know it's going to take longer, but it's probably for peace of mind for everyone, I think it's probably the best way to go.
Okay.
That's my tuppence worth. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Behan.
Thank you. Just obviously, I haven't got the raised hand function, and neither does my colleague, Councillor McCabe. With us, when you hit the raised or the thumbs up function, it only stays up for a couple of seconds, so it's quite hard to try and get in. And obviously, when we're voting, we're trying to keep it up to make sure our vote is registered. So maybe just for the fact of transparency, that it's not just me that doesn't have the function, maybe it might be preferable to go ahead and proceed with a roll call vote. I know it's time consuming and there is a lot of motions to get through, but because it's a plan and we want to be transparent in everything we do, transparent, so maybe it would be best just to proceed with a roll call. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bray.
Thank you very much, Ciarán. No, well, I think the raised hands function is quite efficient and effective. And if a vote is unclear, or you as Ciarán or another member feels they're not happy with the result, you can then go to a vote. But if something's going to finish, like something did yesterday, I think 18-3, like it's quite clear to say when you raise your hands. And just on Councillor Toole's point, if you click the participants button with 51 beside it, you can actually see the raised hands on the right hand side of your screen, so you actually can see who has voted. So it's nearly more clear than if you were in the chamber, I think, to see who has voted as well. But if other members have concerns about it, I have no hassle going through the roll call, but I think it's quite efficient for votes that are going to be stuff that's going to go through quite comfortably. But if it's tight, we can always go to a roll call to get complete clarity on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McKee.
Yeah, sorry, just to, I presume we're going to a vote then, are we? Just to clarify something before we go to the
No,
vote.
sorry, we finished discussing it now. So we're going on to the actual, what we're discussing at the moment is that we're discussing the, we've finished discussing the motion. We have now digressed slightly in order to discuss the actual voting process. When the next question you're going to be asked is about the voting process, and if anybody has a contribution, it will be entirely on the voting process. We will not be revisiting the motion. That has been closed by your final contribution yourself. So if it's not in relation to the actual process of the vote, if you could drop your hand there.
Yeah, no, I've no problem with the the voting with the hands. You can see if you go into participants, you can see exactly who's voted which way. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Fitzsimons.
Thanks, Ciarán. Yeah, I feel that the raised hand is adequate. It saves time unless the vote is tight. If you need then to go to a vote, absolutely have a roll call. I think we'd be here a very, very long time considering all the motions we have. And I just wonder, and I don't know, I'm not that high tech, but if the councillors were having a problem, are they using their phones or using the laptops? Maybe that might be a solution or not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Drew, you indicated you wish to speak.
Thanks, Ciarán. Yeah, I have to say I agree with Councillor Bray and Councillor Fitzsimons. I feel otherwise the meeting is going to come unwieldy for voting by roll call on every single vote. Thanks, Ciarán.
Thank you. That looks suspiciously like a raised hand, Councillor Behan.
Thank you, Ciarán. I'm just after seeing it, and it might be just something for Councillor McCabe. In that participant section at the very bottom, there is a raise hand function. So that has. I'm sorry, I'm just not as au fait with
Okay.
as I should be. So
That's perfect.
Thank you.
Perfect. So we're at the ironic position to, do we need to take a vote on how we're going to vote? How we go? So
Look, I started this, and I'm saying my apologies.
Hey,
but
look, I've been raising my hand.
But what has been come across as regards that's not recorded. I wasn't fully aware of that. It's not recorded. It's you know, if it's 18.3 or something like that.
Exactly.
So now I'm fine with that.
Yeah, so absolutely. So that like everything, we're trying to keep everything as similar as we can. Now, if there's a genuine concern,
Sorry, look, I've been raising my hand. Sorry, didn't mean to
sorry,
interrupt. But
Councillor, you have a thumb. You have a thumbs up there. That's a thumbs up.
Yes, I've been put, and that's the challenge. That's the problem.
Yeah.
The raise hand button stays up when you raise your hand. It
Yes.
stays up. It doesn't go down.
Yes.
If somebody puts it down, you put it down yourself.
Yes.
But when you use the thumbs up, after a few seconds, it goes down itself. And that's a concern when the counts are going on. If they haven't gotten to a person who used the thumbs up button, then it would have gone down and you wouldn't know then that they had voted. So that's a challenge.
Again, just to reiterate what Councillor Behan has said with regards, he has found the hands up function. The hands up function is also in the participants drop down menu. So when you look at the participants menu, it will give you the option to raise your hand. And if you can't find it on the bottom part of your screen, the bottom tab of your screen, it should be in the participants tab once you click participants. Maybe we take some time to establish that everybody knows where this button is. And once you find that, then I think we can progress with the normal hands up signal to indicate most votes. Should the vote be tight, then we will revert as usual and customary to go to a roll call vote. But at this time, the mood of the room, should I be right? Do I need to go to a roll call vote? That we are happy to proceed simply once people have an opportunity to locate the raise hand function, we should proceed as we are. And then if there is any tight vote, which people can see along the participants side, you can see which way people are voting. So that can give you some comfort that the vote is being registered accurately. And it will also allow you to see if you have recorded your vote accurately. And indeed, should you have accidentally left your hand up, it will also indicate that to you. It is important that you, as a participant in this meeting, participate actively and are aware of what indication you're giving at any time. And I think that everybody is doing that. I would remind people that briefly, but by and large, everything has been going quite well. And I think that it can continue to keep going that way. Councillor Jamal.
Sorry, thanks, Cahir. Look, I think it's all going very well and fair play to you, Cahir. If people want to be here till next Christmas, then we go with the roll call votes. But I don't think really some people don't realise the amount of work that is involved. So, I think the raise hand function is the way to go, Cahir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. So are we, I hesitate, are we in agreement that we're going to...
Agreed, come on.
Agreed, okay.
20 minutes talking about this vote.
Absolutely, Councillor.
But get on with the meeting.
But Councillor, absolutely, we spend some time now, we may save time in the future. So,
yeah, agreed.
Thank you. Anybody not in agreement? Thank you.
Don't raise your hand.
Okay, thank you very much. So now we go back to the point that we were discussing prior to that discussion. We are going to go to a vote on, we have done the vote on Councillor McKee. No, we're going to go to do the vote on Councillor McKee's motion, motion number 92. Would ask you when you're requested to indicate using the raised hand function, now that everyone's familiar with where it is, to indicate if you're in agreement or not in agreement with the Chief Executive's recommendation. The Chief Executive's recommendation in this instance is that no change is recommended. So we'll put the question to the floor. Could you indicate if you're in agreement with the Chief Executive's recommendation, please? Mm-hmm. Okay, and then we have, if we could take down your indication that you're supporting the Chief Executive's advice. Include myself in that. And now the question, if you are in disagreement with the Chief Executive's recommendation, if you could indicate your disagreement, please. Councillor Dean. Excellent. Okay, thank you very much. So that has been 16 in agreement with the Chief Executive's recommendation and 9 not in agreement. So the Chief Executive recommendation has been accepted, and that concludes the notice of motions that we have submitted prior to, we'd say, in the book. So now we move on to the notice of motions that were received. If you could take down your indication, please, take down your hand on that one, and then we'll then, if you wish to speak, then you can indicate that you wish to speak. Councillor Bonner. Councillor Bonner, do you wish to speak? Okay, if you could just, okay, if you could just take down your hand, so please, thank you. So we move on to the notice of motions. So the notice of motions submitted by Councillor Stephen McKee over the weekend. So that is the first motion that we're going to put down. Will the Chief Executive would like to come in on these?
Look, I think I'm going to come in on this one, if that's okay.
Okay, Sean.
Perfect, thank you. Members, just I suppose a refresher, because it's a while since we dealt with such a process, or it's a couple of weeks now with the Christmas recess. Just to remind you, and Councillor Tolan touched on it earlier, where you see on the Chief Executive's report, no change recommended, that's not necessarily meaning that the Chief Executive is not taking into account your notice of motion. It means that there's no change required. That's already in place in the county development plan. So it's just to remind you of that one. Secondly, you're reminded that if you've submitted a notice of motion as part of the Chief Executive report dated October 2020, and you got a no change recommended, or you're dissatisfied with the response, there's no need to submit it again from the floor. We can discuss it when it comes up for discussion, as we've just done there in terms of the Chief Executive report. October 2020, just to be clear on that one. So you've submitted it as part of that. If you haven't received the response that you want, there's no need to resubmit it from the floor. We can discuss it when we get to it as part of that part of the meeting. And then finally, members, just to remind you, and this would have gone out to you yesterday, and it would have been said to you previous within the solstice. Any notices of motion where you're not accepting the Chief Executive's recommendation, you must state a reason as to why you're not accepting the Chief Executive's recommendation, or why your recommendation is deemed to be more appropriate than the Chief Executive's recommendation. So it's just to highlight that is. Now, I suppose, Councillor McKee, you've a number that are coming forward, and there is no reasons contained in them. And through the chair, if it's all right with the chair, we will accept them today. But I suppose from today onwards, any notice of motion that are received without a reason as to why you're not accepting the Chief Executive's report, we'll basically have to send them back until you contain a reason. Thank you, Cathaoirleach.
And Chair, if I could just come in on that, apologies, I didn't raise my hand. I suppose it will be important on that matter. I suppose it's just because we've moved from a new way of doing our business onto online, that in this instance, Cathaoirleach, you would allow that exception. But as Sean has rightly said, we would have to return the motion to you if you didn't have the justification, the reason for what you want to do in your motion. But obviously, if we're to allow the two motions, one I think we've already dealt with, Councillor McKee, because one is similar to the last motion there that you had. I think, Chair, if we were to allow it with the members' acceptance of that on this one occasion only, Councillor McKee would have to now justify why he is looking for a recommendation that the Chief Executive has not already recommended.
I suppose first of all, what we need to do then is to establish Councillor Bray.
Thank you, Ciarán. No, just a quick question on Sean and the Chief Executive's points there about giving a reason. How does that apply to submissions? We'd also be discussing the submissions from members of the public and community groups and other elected representatives and things like that. Does a reason have to be given if we're going against the Chief Executive's no change recommendation on that, or are they different to motions recommendations? Thank you, Ciarán.
Thank you, Councillor or Sean.
Yes, just so I'm clear, Councillor Bray. Yeah, any time we're going against the Chief Executive's recommendation, you must give a reason. Now, if you're doing it from the floor on the day, and you're putting forward a motion from the floor, it comes in writing and you state a reason. If it's supporting the submission, the Chief Executive has again stated her reason as to why no change is recommended. And if you're going against that, it must come in as part of a motion.
Thank you, Sean. So the first thing we need to do is to establish that the Chamber is happy to accept on this exceptional circumstances that we can discuss Councillor McKee's notice of motion submitted over the weekend without having the explanation associated with it, and that it is recognised as an exception and is not setting a precedent across every subsequent motion that's submitted. That's the first thing I want to ask the Chamber. Is that okay with you? Have we agreed? Anybody not in agreement? Okay, so there's no disagreement indicated there. So we progress with the motions. So the notice of motion number 1 from Councillor Stephen McKee. It is identical motion. It looks like the identical motion to motion number 92. Councillor McKee, is that correct?
Yes.
So you're withdrawing that motion?
I'm withdrawing that basically.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
As the previous one.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor McKay, Councillor Meath? Okay. Councillor Stephen McKee, notice of motion number 2. Does everybody have a copy of that before them? Is it seconded by Councillor Paddy Mead? Councillor McKee?
Okay, so this, I don't know if can you put it up on the screen there, can you?
You have it in front of you. If you maybe, yeah, okay, it's there. Come on.
Yeah, it's in front of me now. Thanks, Sean. To change the change the zoning on land marked on the attached maps, approximately 10 acres from E2 to E1 at the request of the landowner, major local employer, Nature's Best, in the interest of the company's future needs. Now, Porrick Maguire had referred to this as being an exceptional one, I think, in his view, in terms that it's not dealing with any transport issues in the area. Just to let the members know, Nature's Best is a very, very important local employer in the southern Drogheda environs, over 300 employees. I'm sure you're all familiar with the company, a distributor of fresh food to all major supermarkets in the area. They have expressly requested that the zoning on a small section of their land within the county, I don't know if you can get that up, but the triangular piece of land that they own that's in County Meath, just behind their factory there, that they have an expressed wish that the zoning would change on that from E2 to E1 to facilitate offices and other use as well that would meet the E1 objectives that they currently can't do as the E2 zoning. So it's a small section of that. It's approximately 10 acres. As I said, it's a very, very important local employer, and they really need our support. And I believe we should be doing all we can, certainly as a council, support the company and to support their the employment that they offer in the area. And I'd appreciate support on this, the zoning from E2 to E1 to support Nature's Best. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor. So what we might do is just go straight to the response first, and then we can debate it.
Okay, thanks, Chair. I suppose in terms of, I mentioned earlier that this may be the one exception in terms of the notices of motion and submissions before us today that refers specifically to employment activity. The first thing I guess that we need to establish is the justification and reasons for the submission. And I suppose we would ask the question, what exactly is it that the E2 can't deliver that the E1 zoning will deliver? The E2 zoning is there for a reason. These lands form part of a larger land bank that runs to the east of the motorway and adjacent to the retail park in Drogheda. And obviously there are some other E2 lands located to the southeast of the site. We also have E1 lands located further north, which form part of the strategic employment site and indeed currently house State Street and soon to be Amazon. So I guess looking at the justification, Councillor McKee has just referred that E1 is better for office development. We would facilitate office development under the E2 zoning. And many uses, when we look at the zoning matrix of the development plan, there are a huge number of uses permitted under E2 already. And I suppose that is my question, what exactly does the E2 not deliver that E1 will deliver? And I guess for members to understand what is the essential difference between E2 and E1. E2 is essentially the traditional business district or industrial development that you go into, where you get a various types of activity ongoing, and they can range from motor repair, sort of telecommunications, warehouse, utilities, factory showroom, different types of warehouse shops, etc. The E1 zoning then, on the other hand, is a more high-tech, very much geared towards something like State Street, Amazon, and others, Facebook, for example, at Pace, and others would be located on such land. So it's a sort of a higher tech, higher order, I guess more contemporary office development, and they're located at strategic points throughout the zone maps. The current E2 zoning, as I've referred to, south of Nature's Best is E2, and it exists to the west of Nature's Best as well. So it forms part of a land bank, which is E2. It would just seem rather odd to just have a small pocket of land E1. It's not to say that it creates any significant difficulties, I must point that out. But my question is really around the reasons and justification for an isolated piece of E1 zoning on these lands which form part of a larger strategic land bank. So it gets to the point, what's the reason and justification for this proposal, and also the question around what does E2 not deliver that E1 will for this business? Thank you.
Thank you, Pádraig. Councillor McKay, Councillor Meath.
Thank you, Cahill. I suppose I come from this. Nature's Best, when a lot of people hear of it, might think of like nearly an agricultural company in the lettuce, the tomatoes, the fruit and veg. I have family members that are involved in the fruit and veg business as well. And it has massively transformed in the last 20 years to now where you have offices of graphic designers designing your labels. It's high tech. If you look at different fruit and veg companies that I would be familiar with, they have offices of staff as well as factory workers. So I suppose the thing is it high tech? Is it contemporary offices? Yes, there probably is an element of that which is required with this company, as is required with other companies. The site is at the back of Nature's Best's factory. Effectively, it is landlocked. It is not something that someone else is going to go out and buy. This is going to be a Nature's Best development site. Nature's Best, as people will be aware or may be aware, started out in Bellewstown and took the tactical decision, which I believe was the right decision, to move to Drogheda next to the M1, which means their lorries and transport don't be affecting rural roads. And so they've shown good practice, I suppose, would be the way of putting it. And if they believe that this development will progress their company even further, it is something that I think we should encourage. I think this could result in many more jobs into the area. And as I say, the fruit and veg game has changed. You now need graphic designers, you need people who can speak multiple languages. You're importing fruit and vegetables from all over the world. It's people with degrees and masters is that now work in the Meath, in County Meath agricultural game. That's where Irish agriculture is, and it's a good place to be. We're high tech, we're efficient, we're selling the best produce. Thank you.
Sorry, that was my fault. Councillor Behan.
Thank you, Cahirlock. Look, I'm at a bit of a loss. I'm assuming the chief's recommendation is for no change, and I can't see why we'd need to change from E2 to E1 if it's the case that there's office blocks need to be developed. I understand Councillor Meath's point, but I don't see the need to change it from E2 to E1. So unless you can convince me why, I'll be voting in line with the chief's recommendation on that. Thank you.
I suppose it's just for clarity, we need to just identify what the chief executive's recommendation on this is. Because there isn't a formal response as of yet.
Cahirlock, if I can, again, apologies, I didn't put up my hand, but I think Pori could come back in and just re-clarify the what's permittable within the E1 and E2. I think that's the critical thing. We can just clarify that for members.
Yes, thank you, Cahirlock and Jackie. I think the list under E2 is significant. Alan is currently trying to get up the zoning matrix whilst I'm outlining this, because the zoning matrix essentially outlines what are permitted uses and what are open for consideration. And that's both under E2 and E1. In the meantime, I will outline, I asked sort of two questions. One was the reason and justification for it. And number two was, what can E1 deliver here that E2 currently doesn't? And it does get to the heart of, what's the justification? I also need to state that in principle, we're not against this. There just has to be a reason under the zoning matrix and the justification for zoning. We outlined on a slide yesterday the type of considerations we have when we zone land, and particularly when you're looking at employment land, you zone larger tracts of land, and rather than take bits and pieces off it, which sometimes can change the nature of it, we just have a large land block and use that to attract business and in order to attract infrastructure to develop such lands. So the commercial zonings that we have, the different types of E1, E2, E3, are all tend to be in larger land blocks. This forms part of a larger land block, and I'm just not getting a justifiable reason or justification as to why we need to change it from E to 1. I'm not objecting to it in principle. I just don't have a proper reason as to why we need to change it. So until that happens, the view of the Chief Executive and the Planning Department will be that it's not necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Pádraig. Councillor Tolan.
Thanks, Cahirlock, and I suppose I'm on the same wavelength there as Pádraig and as Councillor Behan in relation to the justification. I know we agreed to accept Councillor McKee's motions with not on the same form, but we haven't really heard a reason, and I'm fully supportive of employment. It's really, really important, and Nature's Best is a fantastic employer. I know them well. I also don't see, I can't see the justification of not agreeing to zone it to E1, but I'm just wondering why, if they can still develop offices there, what is there an implication, Porrick, of a change in the value of the land? Is there an what are the negative implications for us to go against yourselves and say yes, give them E1? You know, I suppose we haven't heard the justification, I suppose, or enough about it. And I suppose if they can still develop what they need to develop with the current zoning, what is the reasoning for E1? So I have more questions than I have comments, I suppose, is what I'm saying.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Tobin.
Thanks, Cahirlock. Couple of questions. Just with E1 and E2, are we essentially saying there's no difference between E1 and E2, or are we saying that there is that E1 and E2 are that intrinsically linked, that no matter what kind of a planning application comes in, there's merits within any planning application for E1 or E2, so therefore it's not an issue? That's my query. And then the other thing I wanted to say was just, we've agreed that an awful lot of this is going to be looked at in the local area plan for Drogheda, or the joint plan for Drogheda. And again, this would be to do with this. If it was a case that Nature's Best had an application, we're ready to go with it, and we're saying, will you please do this for us? They would have gone into the planning department, had a planning meeting with everybody and everything else there, I would have thought at this stage. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Fox.
Just a brief comment on it. I know it's not my area or that, but I mean, E1 and E2, the difference, I mean, E1 is actually more restrictive than E2, because E1 is sort of technology, high technology-ish sort of developments, where E2 is more broad brush. But you can't, that doesn't mean you won't get E1 type development on E2. So I mean, it doesn't really make sense in a way. Now, I'll have a motion coming up on a site in Trim, who I'm going the opposite way. It's zoned E1. We want to rezone it to E2 because it's too restrictive. It can't be developed as it is because there isn't a demand. So I mean, it's as Porrick said, the fact that it's E2 won't inhibit any type of development on it. Actually, if it was E1, it would, because it is restricted to higher technology type development. So I don't know whether that's any help to you or not, but anyway, that's my contribution. Thanks. Look.
Thank you, Councillor. Jackie.
Thanks, Cahirlock. I suppose I just want to come back to the point, having as I suppose requested the members maybe to allow this to go forward. I think it is incumbent on Councillor McKee to now, I suppose, having heard Porrick, to actually state the reason. We still need that justification and reasoning, even though it didn't come in with the motion, we still need it. And maybe the points and the comments that Porrick have made in relation to what E1 and E2 and what's allowable, maybe that has solved Councillor McKee's issue, and he's happy for it to remain as E2. But I still think, I'm sorry now to push, Chair, but I think Councillor McKee still has to give us the justification for it. So if it does progress and change, we need to understand why.
Thank you, Jackie. Councillor McGinty.
Jackie, you just got in there before me, because I think it's very, there's a reason, obviously the company have requested this and it's not clear. Is there something else that we need to know? So maybe, yeah, more detail on the reason, and then we can make a more informed decision. Thank you.
Just before we close it out with giving Councillor McKee a response, is it, just from my own understanding, is it something that can be discussed under the joint urban area plan? It is something that falls within that remit as well, of course.
Yeah, sorry, can I come in there?
Yeah, absolutely. 1 second, Councillor. Yeah, I'm just looking for a personal point of clarity. Porrick,
yes.
Is it something that will come under, qualifies to be discussed under the local area plan as well, or the joint urban plan for Drogheda?
Yes, Chair, thank you. Absolutely. All zoning objectives will be up for discussion under the joint urban area plan in Drogheda. And I guess Alan has put on screen, I hope people have seen that, what E1 and E2, what it essentially is about. If I want to simplify this down as simple as I can, E2 is a more traditional, dirty type of manufacturing activity. Essentially, I'm not saying it's dirty, but which very much suits what Nature's Best is actually doing on site. So E2 is a perfect zoning for such an enterprise. E1 is a cleaner, high-tech type of use, more contemporary office, or maybe pharmaceutical, etc. So, and Councillor Fox made a very valid point that E1 tends to be slightly more restrictive in the type of uses that will be permitted relative to an E2 use. So it really comes back to it. We have no objection in principle. We just don't understand the rationale or why this needs to be changed. I'll just leave it up to the members from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Pádraig. And Councillor McKee to come back in to finish out the discussion.
Yeah, look, I've been trying to get back in there, and look, I appreciate the opportunity. I just have additional notes in front of me. Maybe I wasn't clear from the outset for the reasons. I mentioned office space, which is one reason. The other reason actually that I have in front of me here now is accommodation space is an additional reason why they wish to rezone E2 1. Under E2, there's accommodation under E. And under E1 they can. And one of the issues they face, and lots of other businesses in the area face, is the cost of renting. It's a problem throughout the county, and that's a major point for them, is that they want to be able to provide those in addition to office space, and they think it's best suited under an E1 zoning. I would say to the members that this request has come in from me. It's Nature's Best itself. So it should be viewed in that light. Do we have a major local employer requesting that land that they own, that in no way impacts on transport, as Pádraig has said, no way on residential area, and is essentially a corner site? That request has come in from them, from me, and they feel it's important future business, and that would be rezoned from E2 to E1. As I said, office space and accommodation space is the other reason why E1 they feel would suit their objectives, and being able to offer local employees, not only from Nature's Best, but from other local businesses as well, being able to provide high quality accommodation for those employees. Because as I said, the big problem in Drogheda, as in all our major towns and everywhere in the county, is the cost of renting accommodation for employees is very high. They found that they have to buy property in Drogheda. They've been buying up property, renting property, and it's not sustainable in the long term for them to do that. So they want to include, as I said, a plan for accommodation in that area along with office space. So I hope I've clarified that. That's the reasoning behind it. And as I said, it is at the express request of the company, and the company are really looking for us and Meath County Council to support them in that objective. Thanks very much.
In light of that clarification, we might just go back to Pádraig there, because that might have influenced the recommendation, if that's okay.
Thank you, Chair. I think if Alan just scrolls down and looks at E1, and we look at the uses permitted, residential is not permitted on E1 zoning. The only accommodation that is permitted is hotel, apart hotel. And the justification for that is if you have a high-tech industry like pharmaceutical or high-end chemical or whichever, sometimes you will have people flying in from abroad, either directors, company owners, or actually specialist staff. And the justification for hotel and apart hotel, that type of uses is for those traditional residential or that is not generally permitted on E1. Residential accommodation within zoned commercial land is not permissible and will face difficulties under the development management process, as there are numerous policy and objectives within the development management chapter. So I don't think this change from E2 to E1 will accommodate residential zoning on this site. Thank you.
Thank you, Pádraig. Councillor McGinty, in light of that, in light of the qualifying information that Councillor McGinty
Yeah, I was looking for that information actually, and thank you, Pádraig, for answering it. Yeah, I was thinking that it wouldn't qualify. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tolan.
Thanks. I suppose the other concern I would have about providing possible accommodation would be, well, are they no longer than a local employer? And is it for immigrant workers? Or I mean, there's a real concern of changing the focus of employment land when you provide temporary accommodation there. I mean, there's any amount of housing in the area, and so that would be, I suppose, a question that I would have for Porrick. Is there a likelihood, if we do change the zoning, that's what it would become, particularly with the agricultural nature of the business? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Behan.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach. Yeah, just to reaffirm my point, if I can, that unfortunately there's not enough sufficient information there to convince me to change my opinion. I can't see what way they're referring to accommodation. I don't know what they want to do. I see, thanks to Porrick for highlighting that it's a hotel or apart hotel. I don't know if that's what in Nature's Best are referring to, or they have some other idea. So with that, I just cannot justify voting to change it from E2 to E1. So I'll be voting to keep it zoned E2. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor McKee, to finish up, and then we're going to go for a vote. We're going to get a formal position from planning, and then we're going to see if we agree with that or we don't agree with it, and that'll be where we take it.
Yeah, just to come back and look, just to further clarify, the zoning there in E1, obviously hotel, apart hotel, and it's the apart hotel that Nature's Best are looking at. It's not residential housing. It's an apart hotel to cater for employees and for employees in the vicinity of their business. So they're requesting the change of objective from E2 to E1 for offices and also an apart hotel for accommodation. So I just want to clarify that. Now, I just highlight again, this is an expressed wish of the business. They know their business more than any of us. They know their needs. And I think in my view, it's incumbent on us to support businesses like Nature's Best. What they're trying to do, it's a big problem throughout the whole county, in that businesses attracting employees to an area, and essentially employees can't afford local rates. Of course, there are houses in Drogheda, but you can't get rent in Drogheda for less than 1,000 to 1,200, 1,300 a month. So it's a big problem for the employees finding suitable accommodation. What they're proposing is that the zoning would change to E1, provide some certain amount of office space that they need to develop their business, and in addition, some sort of an apart hotel accommodation where they will be able to accommodate workers in high quality accommodation, not only from their own business, but also neighbouring business as well. In no way, shape or form is it residential development, not impinging on the local area whatsoever. And I think it's incumbent and very important, certainly from my point of view, to be fully supporting Nature's Best in what they need in going forward. So I'd appreciate if the members could seriously take that in consideration when voting. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor. So we just go back again to the CE for the formal recommendation, I suppose, when we put it to a vote, and also then we can take it from there. Jackie?
Okay, Cathaoirleach, thanks. I'll just make one comment, and I might just ask Porrick to make a comment on just, I suppose, on the clarity again that Councillor McKee has made, I suppose, and it's for this very purpose that's specifically why we need the justification and the reasoning to come with the motion, that the planners would have, sufficient time at least to consider it before coming to the meeting, coming with the recommendation. But I'd suggest in this instance, we would still hold the zoning as E2, and that's more appropriate for the use that Nature's Best find them in. But I might just ask Paul.
Sorry, Jackie, I might just interrupt you there for 1 second. I would ask any members participating not to record the meeting. Please, that is very important, that there's no recording taking place at this meeting. Every member is aware of that, and we laid that down. We laid down the rules very clearly at the beginning of the meeting. Any members that are found to be in breach of the rules will then be subject to and will be find themselves excluded from the meeting if they continue to break the rules as highlighted and agreed by ourselves. So that's something just to remind everybody. And if I observe it, regardless of who it is, I will call it, and I will then apply the rules as we have agreed to it, as laid down by ourselves. And these rules are applicable to everybody. Thank you. Sorry for the interruption, Jackie.
No, that's no problem, Cahirlock. I suppose again what I was saying is this stresses the importance of why the justification and reasoning for a change, particularly on zoning, needs to come and be accompanied with the notice of motion. That we in the planning department have sufficient time to assess what the motion is saying. But again, I might just ask Pádraig just to come back in and confirm that it would not be our recommendation to change the zoning from E2 to E1 for the specific reasons that Pádraig has set out already.
Pádraig.
Okay, thanks, Jackie. I'm going to be very concise and clear here. Under E1 zoning, apart hotel is open for consideration. It is not a permitted use. As you can see on screen, there are permitted uses, which are basically say, these are the uses, the primary uses you want to see on E1 zoning. Open for consideration are exactly what it says in the tin. They are only open for consideration, of which apart hotel is one. If we look at the definition of an apart hotel, it is a set of apartments. As of the Cambridge English Dictionary, it is a set of apartments where you can stay for a short time that offers services like a hotel. For example, tea, coffee, towels, and cleaning services. So therefore, on the basis of the information I have, I can't advise members to zone from E2 to E1. If such an application came into Meath County Council for accommodation such as this on either E2 or E1 zone land for such purposes, it would be considered, it is a likely contravention of the plan and would be refused. However, if members were to take an application like that under section 34(6) of the Planning and Development Act, which allows for material contravention, you could vote on this individual case at a planning application stage and do a material contravention as a one-off issue rather than rezoning. But to conclude, it is the advice of the Planning Department that this should remain as a land bank of E2 zone land in its entirety. Thank you.
Thank you, Pádraig. So what we're going to do now, based on that, so the recommendation is that there be no change formally. So with regards to that, that's the question that will be put to the room. So again, in a moment, we will be asking you to indicate if you're in agreement with the Chief Executive's recommendation of no change. And then we will ask the next question, which is if you're in disagreement. So right now, as of now, you're being asked, well, actually, it is just put down your hand for a second, please. Any councillor who may have indicated, actually, some advice with regards to, because it's got to do with a private request about zoning. It's considered best that we move to a formal roll call vote rather than an indicative vote. We'll move to a roll call vote on this because of the nature of the motion. Again, just for clarity, the reason that we're moving to a roll call vote is because it's a private request on behalf of a private company, and that is a change of use of land. So just for our own, like the use of the language, transparency and clarity has been used during the discussion, so it's important that we try and maintain that. So we'll move into a roll call vote. Robert will be calling your name, and please, if you agree or disagree, indicate either or. So the question is, do you agree with the Chief Executive's recommendation? And if you do, say agree. If you don't, say disagree. Thank you. Is everybody clear? Anybody not clear? Okay, we'll proceed with the vote.
Thank you, Cahirlock, and I hope you can hear me.
And you will need to unmic yourself as well. Remember to unmute yourself.
Councillor Adanuga.
Agree.
Councillor Behan.
Agree.
Councillor Bonner. Councillor Bonner. Can you give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down?
Thumbs up. You agree?
Thank you. Councillor Bray.
Agree.
Councillor Cassidy. Is Councillor Cassidy still with us? I don't think so. Councillor Dean. Is Councillor Dean still with us?
Agree.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Dempsey.
Disagree.
Disagree. Councillor Drew.
Agree.
Councillor Fennessy is not at the meeting. Councillor Fitzgerald, not present. Councillor Fitzsimons.
Agree.
Councillor Fox.
Agree.
Councillor French.
Agree.
Councillor Gallagher is not present. Councillor Garrity Smith, not present. Councillor Gilroy.
Agree.
Councillor Golden is not present. Councillor Harding.
Agree.
Councillor Jamal.
Agree.
Councillor Kyogan.
Disagree.
Councillor Killian is not present. Councillor Laws, not present. Councillor McCabe.
Agree.
Councillor McGinty.
Agree.
Councillor McKee.
Disagree.
Councillor Mead.
Disagree.
Councillor Moore.
Agree.
Councillor Murphy.
Agree.
Councillor O'Connor.
Agree.
Councillor Aisling O'Neill is not present. Councillor O'Reilly.
Agree.
Councillor Sarah Riley is not present. Councillor Tommy Riley.
Agree.
Councillor Amanda Smith is not present. Councillor Suhan. Is Councillor Suhan with us? I think she's. Councillor Suhan, you're still logged on. Are you able to record a vote?
No, it's not. We move on.
Okay. Councillor Tobin. Councillor Tobin.
Agree.
Thank you. Councillor Tobin.
Agree.
Councillor Tolan.
Agree.
Councillor Toole.
Agree.
Councillor Tormey. Is Councillor Tormey with us? I don't think he's present. Okay.
Councillor Suhan has returned. So,
Councillor Suhan, are you in agreement or in disagreement with the Chief Executive's recommendation?
Agree.
Thank you.
okay, so the results of that ballot has been that 24 in agreement with the Chief Executive's response and 4 in disagreement with the Chief Executive's response. So it has been the motion is not carried, I suppose. Okay, it does again just to highlight the importance of having the section of your reasoning behind your motion included in your motion. And with as much information and detail as possible to allow people to have a discussion. That's our first kind of big discussion around zoning land, and it has been a considerable one. So it's just something to bear in mind. Clarity on your position is very important. Okay, we move on to notice of motion number 3, Councillor Stephen McKee. Do you have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Mead. To Councillor McKee.
So there, Sean, you might put the motion up on screen there if you can, please.
Yeah, it should be available for you on screen now.
Oh, thanks.
Is that the same? Is that the same motion? Is that the same motion? No, it's got to do with the same parts of land.
That's the same motion, yeah.
So that's 2 and 3 are the same.
Could you just confirm, Councillor McKee, 2 and 3 are the same motion? Would I be correct in saying that?
Well, what's motion number 2? Number 3 is nature's best one. That's on the screen. What was number 2?
That was the same. It was the same.
Previous.
Yeah.
It's the same motion, yeah.
So just for clarity, you submitted the same motion twice because we did receive two motions from you.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
I actually submitted it once. The second email, maps in on the second email. Just to clarify.
Okay, perfectly. We'll
Okay,
move on
so
then to
we'll move on.
4.
So it's notice of motion number 4, Councillor McKee. We have a seconder for that motion. Councillor Keoghan, seconded that motion. So see, Councillor McKee, if you'd like to speak on your motion.
Okay, yeah. So the motion is to set as an objective of the county development plan the provision of a new train station on lands at Cope, marked on the map, as part of the proposed DART expansion works to Drogheda and electrification of the Northern rail line, taking into consideration the huge population in the area and the need for improve our transport infrastructure in the southern Drogheda environs. Because those lands there are the lands that Pádraig referred to earlier on. There's a planning permission there for a business campus. It's adjacent to Grange Rat, which I understand is the largest housing estate, I think, in the county, over 1,000 houses. And the South Drogheda area, as if members aren't familiar, is a hugely populated area in southern Drogheda environs. Transport, as I said earlier on, I put the spot objective was for park and ride. This is completely separate to that. It's for a train station on these lands. And look, I'm not going to try and identify an exact location, but I do think it's important that we set it as an objective that there would be a train station as an objective of our county plan in that area and in the vicinity of those lands there. The nearest train station, obviously Laytown Station and Drogheda train stations are, when things back to normal are at full capacity. We have huge transport-related issues in South Drogheda, and we do need to improve the transport, traffic problems and so on. So I think it's an ideal location in and around there, particularly in light of the business campus that's going to be developed there. And I would really appreciate support that included as an objective. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Meath.
Thank you, Cahirlock, and thank you, Councillor McKee, for a wonderful motion. I think there is some wonderful stuff being here proposed for Drogheda in this development plan. We see it when we look at the map, the red dotted line potentially, and new bypass and or loop around the town. There's a lot of really big projects, new roads and different things that are needed. And this is us looking at a train station. And people will know there's a massive campaign to get a train to Navan. This isn't to get a train because there already is a train passing. It's just to get a station. And clinically, if you have a station there and it's stopping there, it will encourage people from the surrounding area, not just Grange Rat, but the Leak and surrounding areas to go and use that train, not have to go into the town of Drogheda or down the road, down the Dublin Road to the train station in Drogheda. There's a massive population in that area. If you look at our proposed county development plan, we're zoning a lot of residential land around there. There's going to be a lot more residential in that area. So there is a very high population there that would use the train station in such a location. And as well as the amenity to them, it would also take traffic off Drogheda, and hopefully it would take cars out of Julianstown and other roads with more people using the train. This should be encouraged. I urge the fellow councillors to back Councillor McKee's motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We're just going to go to Pádraig to get the recommendation of the Chief Executive and the Chief Executive team, obviously, with regards to the response to this motion.
Sorry, Chair, you can hear me there?
Yes.
Yep. Yes, again, this is a proposal, and I think a train station in southern Drogheda is very topical, and I would highlight that the NTA have current consultation out that's open at the minute until the end of January, and I think in that NTA consultation there is whether it's either written into it or suggestion that a train station in southern Drogheda is a good idea and will happen. I guess the site is not identified yet, but it is a consultation process. So there is consultation outside this development plan and expresses the need for a train station. The train station here is obviously further northwest. There is a train station further northwest along the line. And indeed, Shannon Homes, on whose land this is to be located. The proposal, the spot objective, that black dot you see on the map, is beside the Shannon Homes development, which Councillor McKee has just referred to. Indeed, as part of the SHD process, there was a proposed strategic housing development by Shannon Homes on the yellow land that you can see just northeast of the black dot. Again, it's owned by Shannon Homes, and a lot of discussion was had with Board Planola as to how people in this area would access the existing train station. So it would take a footbridge across the existing line to get up to the existing train station way up to the north west of the site. So it's undoubtedly true that a train station is required. We just don't know where. Our suggestion would be obviously that would form a part and discussion in the transportation project, which has been mentioned many times here today. Obviously, we're not against an objective because it is required in the area, but again, our opinion and the recommendation of the manager is that this will be best considered within the transportation study, which serves the whole of Drogheda, and the correct location will be chosen. So that would be the recommendation of the manager, the Chief Executive. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Just as an aside there, in the chat, there's some questions being asked with regards to the interaction with the meeting. The meeting interaction will be through conversation, an indication that you want to ask a question by raising your hand. The question that they're asked about, why is the meeting going over the allocated time? The chat is not part of the public discussion here. So that it won't be any questions asked that way. It won't be introduced into the conversation in the chamber. So if there's a question that wishes to be raised, it's important that you raise it orally. And that is something that needs to be understood by everybody who participated. Just to briefly respond to that, the meeting we had yesterday, one of the advantages to having the online option is that we're not limited by the recommendations or the guidelines around the hour and 55 minutes being present together in the one room. That would expose us then to be close contacts. So that was highlighted as one of the advantages to this format. So we are in a position to finish out this topic today, and with the agreement of the councillors present, that we would then move on accordingly. By the end of each meeting, we decide what it is we're going to do ourselves. But again, if there's questions to be asked, those questions should be asked by indicating you wish to speak and not asking questions across chat, because there is a good chance that correspondence or that question will be missed, and then would cause some dissatisfaction with how the meeting was taking place subsequent to the meeting finishing. So it's just we're early on this, and we're still working through the kind of guidelines and the rules, and the attempt to be consistent, and that is something that will be consistent as well. And so thank you very much for that. Councillor Tolan.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach. I suppose just to say again, and perhaps I don't think Councillor McKee was able to make many of the meetings for the pre-draft discussions, but my motion number 92 to introduce a new objective to support the delivery of an additional train station in the southern environs of Drogheda as part of the future joint urban plan, as part of the DART expansion works, etc., etc. The Chief Executive's recommendation at that stage and response was that there was merit in the motion, and she agreed to include objective number 8. It's on page 159, to explore the feasibility of a train station in conjunction with Irish Rail and Louth County Council as part of the joint urban area plan. Obviously, it's important to look at the wider area and the expansion of both housing and jobs that will be created in the area to identify the exact location that would be an optimal location for both residents in the area and for incoming commuters for jobs in the area. So look, it's already there, and that's obviously why the Chief Executive is recommending no change. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGinty.
Thanks. I support additional train station in this part of the town, but putting a dot on the map as and thank you, Park, for identifying that it was Shannon Holmes' land. We don't know if that's appropriate yet, so I think that if there is a process there looking at where it's best suited, knowing there's a lot of land there that and population demand, if that's already in existence, then I think we should follow that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. We might just go back to Pork again, just to clarify Councillor Tolan's point that is in fact there is already an objective within the plan. Is that correct?
Sorry, that is correct, and thank you, Councillor Tolan. I should have pointed that out in my earlier comment. It is move objective 8 on page 159 of the existing draft plan. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, I suppose to re-emphasise the point that Sean had made earlier on, by not supporting a motion, it's not that you're necessarily against it, it's that it's not necessary to make an alteration to the plan because it's already contained within it. So that's something to consider as well. It's certainly something that framed my way of thinking around how I'm voting as well. So just to give that. So Councillor McKee, I'll come back to you and then we will move to a vote. Councillor, if you could unmute yourself, please. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Cahill. Yeah, well, look, the motion is specific to Cope. Look, I put a dot on the map there. I'm not identifying the exact location there in Cope. All I'm saying is that we should have an objective in the county development plan for the provision of a train station in Cope. And I think it's very, very important as we go into a joint urban area plan. As a joint urban, sorry, can I not be interrupted?
That was, I think that was a mistake. Councillor, I think that was an accident. I think that was an accident.
Okay, I'll take it as an accident. Okay. I think it's very important as we go into talks with Louth County Council, it's very important that we've highlighted our objectives in the area and we've identified locations where we want to see important infrastructure. As has been noted earlier on, it's a very residential area. We have a business campus going in there, and I think it's very important. You know, we all agree, and all the speakers have agreed there, that we need to improve the infrastructure in the area. And as Porrick said as well, this would be considered as part of the transport study. And we also see the expansion of the DART. So I think it's very important as an objective, and I just stress that I'm not identifying an exact location there. All I'm saying is in the Cope area that we set as an objective for a train station. It might not happen for a number of years, you know, but I think it's important that as a council we set an objective that we're going to try and improve the transport in that area. And I'm sure, as all the speakers have said, that they will support the idea that there would be a train station provision in the Cope area. So I look forward to the support of the councillors on this one. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. We go to Jackie. I'm afraid Councillor Behan, that's closed out the discussion. Okay, Jackie.
I suppose just again to confirm what Porrick has said and what Councillor, we have an objective in the plan already, but that's why we're not recommending to accept this motion. The objective is already in the plan. Thank you, Carla.
Councillor McKee, if you're happy to accept that the objective is already within the plan, maybe we could just move on to the next motion without a vote. You want to vote on this? Okay.
Can I come in?
No yes.
Can I come in?
Well, to answer the question, just to answer the question, you want to proceed to a vote? Yes or no?
I do. A roll call vote,
Okay,
please.
thank you. A roll call vote. Okay.
Yeah, please.
Let's go to a roll call vote in regards to this. Councillor McKee. So to frame the question that everybody has been asked with regards to it is that it has been indicated to us that this motion is not necessary because the information is already, or the objective is already contained within our county development plan. That is the reasoning for the recommendation of not making a change.
Can I seek a clarification, Carla?
Certainly.
We all agreed that the best way was the raised hand. Can any of us demand a roll call vote at any time?
Well, if people are objecting to it, it's no problem. We can have, if people would feel would prefer not to have a roll call vote, it's something, if people indicate that they don't want a roll call vote.
No, let's go ahead with the raised hand as we have done.
Okay. Councillor O'Connor, is specific to the vote. If you could just unmute yourself, please.
Sorry, Keir, look, just before we have the vote, is there any chance of getting clarity in relation to which councillor was recording the conversations earlier on, recording this meeting? Because I think that would be important to know before we close the business down today.
Okay, that's something we can come back to that point. We come back to that point in a second once we get past the this point. But we will revisit that point, Councillor, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Meath, clarification on the vote.
Yeah, clarification on the vote. Again, maybe like the other one, this does refer to someone's land and them reasons. I think a roll call vote is a good idea. So a roll call vote, I think, is a good idea for them reasons. Thank you.
Okay, so we just, and Councillor Behan.
Thank you. Just to clarify, because there was a map provided and there was an area specifically located with the black dot, does that mean if we vote to accept Councillor McKee's recommendation, that is the area we will be setting out as our objective for the train station? Because it's specifically highlighted in the map.
We just get clarification on that particular point, Pádraig or Jackie.
I'll come in on this one, if that's
Sean?
okay. Here, look,
Yeah.
yes, that's the point identified in the map as part of the motion. So that's effectively where Councillor McKee is calling for it. And just to bring you back to a conversation Pádraig mentioned earlier, any points of maps, etc., must be environmentally assessed before they went back out on public display. You can't just put a point on a map without having an environmental assessment of it. Thanks, Cahir.
Thank you, Sean. So, and also with regards, just the question about the standing order and the roll call vote, is that under standing order 20.11, is that right? 20.11? Requires 3 members of the chamber to request a roll call vote in order for a roll call vote to take place. So we have 2. And again, just to get point on exactly what we're voting on is that if we vote on this, we are voting to accept that point on that map is the point that we will be, our objective will become about placing the train station there. And that's just the point. It's the first time we've encountered a specific question about a specific point on a map. That's why we're going into a little bit more detail with regards to this. So we are voting in favour of placing a train station within that point as pointed out by our planning department. So Jackie, you want to come in there?
Chair, again, can I just again clarify, we have an objective within the development plan for the train station, I suppose, and the issue, what Pádraig was saying to the members, and I know you heard it, is that this will form part of the transportation study. We need to, there's a huge assessment process has to go on. You can identify where is the best suitable location for anything, be it a train station, a road, and so on and so forth. Sean also mentioned that this has to be environmentally assessed. Huge amount of work in that, and that will all form part of the transportation study. So we have the general objective within the plan, so be assured of that for the train station. What we haven't done, and Pádraig can come in and kick me if we haven't put the specific place, because you need to do a full assessment of that. And that will be done, but not now.
Thank you, Jackie. Councillor McGinty.
I think it's very important to say here, had that vote gone ahead, that land would have been privately owned. Shannon Home Developments would have got a station on their land. But I didn't understand until Pádraig said that that was exactly where we were putting the station. So it's very important for future meetings that we know this, and for future planning. It wasn't just a dot on the map. It was very specific to a development, and that could have gone ahead had we voted on what, unless we had that clarification. And it's important for the rest of the meeting. So thank you for that. Okay.
No problem. I suppose absolutely. Jackie, do you want to come back in there?
Well, I do, Cahir, because I begged your indulgence, as I did with the members, for allowing these to come forward without the reason on it. And I do apologise to all the members for that. But I suppose I need to prove the point. The justification and the reason need to come with a notice of motion for all members, that they are fully proposed, and as well as that, that the planning department can make a full assessment on it. So I do apologise. You were the chair and the members agreed that we would proceed. But I suppose this proves why, the justification needs to come with the thing at the very start when you're making a notice of motion, because we've probably had quite a protracted debate because of its absence. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Murphy.
Hi, all right, thanks, Cathaoirleach. Just based on Councillor McGinty's just question or comment there, could you ask Pádraig just to clarify for the members, while we have objectives within our county development plan, who in the state, what organisation decides where train stations are located? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Pádraig, if you'd like to clarify Councillor Murphy's question.
Yes, the NTA will decide ultimately, and as I referred to in my earlier contribution, that there is consultation currently out by the NTA, which I think closes at the end of January. And one of the issues being discussed within that document, for which we will be making a detailed submission. And I've asked one of my staff today to look at this in detail together with the senior engineers in transportation to do a detailed analysis and put forward a submission to the NTA strategy. So I can assure members that will be complete, and we will be making those contributions to the current consultation process, which ends at the end of this month. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to go Councillor McKee. Is this particular to Councillor McKee? Could you unmute yourself, please, Councillor McKee?
Sorry, do I have the final word? Do I on the motion?
Yeah, we thought we had the final word a few minutes ago when you were looking for a roll call vote. So the motion, the final word on the motion has taken place.
Okay, well, look, if we could go ahead then with the look just on the dot on the map, as I said, it's an objective is what I've set down in the motion that there would be in that area of Cope. So there are lands there available for a train station. I don't know where exactly. That's not for me to decide where exactly the train station go, but I think it's important as a council that it be put in as an objective, that our intention to put a train station in that area. And that's what I'm kindly asking the members to vote. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor. I do think that though, in light of the information we received, your notice of motion specifically refers to that dot on the map, and if we vote to accept a change to the Chief Executive's response, then we are voting in favour of placing it within that dot, as outlined to us by the Planning Department. So that's what we're going to move ahead and vote on. Yes, Councillor. Councillor, yes, Councillor McKee.
Sorry. The purpose of the dot was to show members the land, the area in question.
Well, it wasn't highlighted. It wasn't highlighted as a zone. It was highlighted as a very specific point on the map. So that's why. So we can only vote on the motion. But it can't. We must vote on the motion.
I'm clarifying it now for members.
But it's not.
On lands marked.
Okay, with the dot. Okay, but we're voting on the dot.
But I think I've explained that there's an objective on those lands in that area.
But again, just sorry, Councillor, if you just take down your hand there, please, as well. Thank you very much. With regards to the information presented to us as a chamber and the discussion and the decision that we must take, as outlined to us by the Planning Department, that an indication of a single dot on the page is indicating a very specific location, and and with all of the corresponding requirements that come with that dot, it's not indicative as a zone of land or as a particular area. It's a particular dot on a map, and that is what we're voting on. That is what we will be deciding on now. And just for clarity for the rest of our members, the Chief Executive's recommendation is that there's no change recommended, and indeed no change required, but no change recommended. So you will be asked to indicate with your hand, indicate that you are in agreement with the Chief Executive's recommendation of no change. So please raise your hand now if you indicate that you are no change. Okay, thank you very much. And then if you just lower your hands, please. I myself included, thank you. And then if you if you could raise your hand if you are in disagreement with the Chief Executive's recommendation. Councillor Bonner, if you could you had your hand up for the agreement as well. If you could just remove your hand if you're not in agreement. If you are in agreement. Thank you. 2. So that's a very indicative, that's 20 to 2. 20 against 2. 22 to 2. Okay, so that's fairly obvious as to the will of the room. So just to give to come back to Councillor O'Connor's question, I had a suspicion that a councillor may or a member of the group or within our Zoom was recording. I have no evidence of that. It was my suspicion, and I raised my suspicion in that regard. I don't think then it would be appropriate in case that was only a fact that a person just appeared to be recording the conversation, appeared to be in breach of our rules. But at this time, that's why I indicated that it was inappropriate posturing. So that was, and to remind people that that of our rules of recording conversation, and that those rules apply, and maybe we might just circulate an email reminding people of that as well, because it would be maybe inappropriate for me to name somebody who was actually not recording. It only appeared to look like they were recording. So in regards to that, that's that issue closed out in regards to that. And then to indicate how I would envisage the remainder of this meeting taking place, and there is another 1, 2, 3, 4 motions to go through, and then when we get to the end of the motions, notice of motions for the Drogheda area, that we would conclude the meeting today and move on to the submissions for Friday. Would we be in agreement with that? Anybody not in agreement? Okay, so that's what we'll do. We'll finish that. We'll go to notice of motion submit up as far as number 7, which is, and then we will recess then until Friday. So the next motion is a notice of motion number 5, Councillor Paddy Mead. If we have a seconder for that motion. You seconder for the motion? Councillor McKee. Councillor Mead.
Thank you, Cahirlock. And this is a very specific motion. I have a map, and I have reasons written out in detail. So if people look at the map, they will see I have highlighted the site with red going around it. And this is currently residential land. If you just scroll up a little bit, people will see it. So it is currently residential land. And in this motion, I am proposing that we change this from A2 to F1, open space. Now, I suppose there's many reasons for this. I suppose one thing is we must be conscious that we are in a housing epidemic. There's a lot of homeless, and there is a serious need for housing. There is also massive restrictions on us as a council and as councillors with the limited amount of land that we can zone. So it is important and indicative of us that we zone the best land that we see for residential use, so that houses can be delivered for the people in our areas. And that is our reserve function as councillors to decide which land should be zoned. And I'm saying this is not the best site when we are restricted with land we can zone. So some of the reasons which I outlined were this land's proximity to the River Boyne and the Battle of the Boyne site. And this has been aired by Bord Pleanála and in court proceedings as an issue with the site. I would ask people to note the archaeological finds and digs that have took place on the site since '98, and many of these can be read in relevant planning applications to the site. There is, again, this is Drogheda, this is a regional growth town. There is a serious population in that area, but as I would have covered in some of my other motions, there is a need for open space, there is a need for playgrounds and things on what is the southwest side of the town. You can see at the edge of the town or of the site there is a strip of green space, but that really is a gripe as such. It's not actual green space, it's not a park, it's not that. And there is a need for such in this area. I know that council officials will respond and say about the joint plan, and we'll have that debate again potentially, and they'll say that they don't want to change zoning. But I'm very clear, I think we have a housing crisis. It's important, if we have limited zoning, that we zone the more appropriate sites. And there is more appropriate sites than this site. This site is very close to a World Heritage Site. It is a site where planning permission, even though has been previously granted, that has been overturned. It's a site where that planning permission may be hard to get in the future, where there's other sites where it may not be. This site, if houses were built, we had an earlier discussion on a new roadway that I would like to see. This site would potentially add over 1,000 more houses into that area with bad access to Drogheda and bad access to the M1. So there's a lot of things about this site. Now, I'm sure there's loads of positive things about this site. I note that the site across the road from it, which is a Glenveigh development, potentially this would become an add-on to the Glenveigh development, was it to be constructed. And I'm sure there's hundreds of reasons why this is a very good site. But in this time, when we have to pick between one place and another place, it is important that we pick the best sites for residential zoning so that we deliver houses into the area. And for all of them reasons, and really because we need green space, we need F1 zoning in the area, I commend this motion to the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Just before we go back, we go to planning for the formal response from the Chief Executive. It's just important in our discussions with regards to land that I don't think it's appropriate that we mention private companies by name in adjoining properties and to enter that into the conversation. We can only talk about it with regards to the particular piece of land. We can't project what those companies may be going to do, so we can only keep the conversation on topic with regards to it, and I think that's only appropriate, and we might just take that under consideration over the course of the next number of weeks when we are discussing land. If there are companies directly involved with it, then I don't think they need to be mentioned in the meeting. Councillor McGinty.
Thank you very much. I agree with Councillor Meath on this.
Oh no, sorry.
Excuse me.
No, I'm so sorry. I meant to go to Pádraig first there just to get the response.
Yeah, no
Apologies.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I'll try and be brief here as best I can. This is a site that is currently A2 zoning, also some F1 zoning, which is effectively a buffer area to the north, which is between the residential zone and the River Boyne. To the west, it is a buffer area with the M1. And the reason for that was to protect any potential residents from amenity issues arising from the M1. The piece to the F1 open space to the north protects the River Boyne, both visually and in terms of inappropriate development, very close to the Boyne itself. There was in the mid-2000s, there was a planning application to Meath County Council that was approved for residential development. The most recent application on the site was by a company under Trailford Limited, and the reference is PL 17.305552. The reason this is important to highlight and point out is that on Board Planola, there was an SHD application under that reference for a large number of houses in this area, which was approved by Board Planola and was found suitable. So two planning authorities over the last 15 years have granted planning permission for lands, and thus I say it is appropriate for residential development. Subsequent to that, judicial review to the High Court under reference 2020 number 238 JR. So a challenge was taken against the decision of Board Planola on this site and overturned the decision of Board Planola on a number of technical procedural issues. So that, as I understand it, currently has the potential to be appealed to the Supreme Court. And I would advise against any change to the zoning or anything got to do with this land at the moment, because we are unsure as to the legal position. If one of the parties could, if the company themselves or Board Planola choose to challenge the decision, which I understand at this point in time they can do, We're not exactly sure of the timeframes, but in the interest of consistency with the Chief Executive's recommendation and the area, Councillor Meath referred to the need for more housing. This is actually removing zoned lands for housing. I would ask that members consider this motion and the next motion from Councillor Meath together, because they refer to the same body of land, where under this current motion put before you, Councillor Meath is asking to change to F1 open space. What hasn't been identified is what area he wants changed to open space. And on the next motion, Councillor Meath has asked part of it be changed to G1, and that hasn't been identified on the map either. So we need that clarified from Councillor Meath in terms of to which exact areas is to be F1 and which is to be G1. Finally,
I'll clarify that if you want.
Yeah, that's okay. I'll just finish off. In terms of the consistency of the Chief Executive's recommendations, we haven't amended any of the zone land. And can I add that this will be a significant area of contention in terms of the order of priority of lands in North Drogheda and South Drogheda when we come to discuss the joint urban plan. It is the view of the Executive that we should not amend or change any of the existing housing lands, as I discussed under the previous one, where there was a proposal to change E2 to residential lands. It is our view that we should keep what zone lands we have, and through the appropriate mechanisms of the joint urban plan, the most likely lands, residential lands to be developed, will be phased under the joint urban plan. And this will be one of the sites that will be considered as well. But I would caution finally on the fact that this is under legal challenge, these lands, and it would be inadvisable to do anything at this point in the development plan on such lands. Thank you.
Thank you, Pádraig. Councillor McGinty.
Actually, I was just going to, if there's another motion and Councillor Meath wants to speak as Pádraig suggested on both together, maybe now's the time to let him back in and then make the comment, if that would save time.
Thank you, Councillor. That'll be taken under consideration. Councillor Bonner, you indicated you wished to speak. Councillor Bonner? Are you there, Councillor Bonner? Okay, so what we might do is, as suggested, that if with the agreement of the proposing councillor, that we consider notice of motion number 6 along with number 5, due to the fact that one is related. So he's indicated he does not want that to happen, so that's okay. So what we will do is then, what we can do is be cognizant of the advice given to us by the planning department with regards to this is an ongoing legal situation as well, and that will form a lot of our discussions, I think. So Councillor McKee, you're indicating, and then you're putting your hand up and taking it down. Do you want to contribute?
Sorry, apologies there. Yeah, look, I support the motion, Councillor Meath's motion, on the basis that notwithstanding the advice that's been given, I think it's a very good motion in terms of dealing with that land that's being refused residential development. I think it's unsuited for residential development, as has been highlighted, and I think there is an opportunity there to make better use of residential zoning in the Drogheda, in the southern Drogheda environs, taking that out of residential zoning and using that for, as has been suggested, green space, which is badly needed in the area. So given the limited amount of new residential zoning, and given the fact there's been a planning refusal on it, suitable for various reasons, including traffic, and in fact it's a very sensitive side view, point of view. I fully support the motion, and I think it would be prudent enough to support it also in terms of the best use of land for the area. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McGinty, you might want to come back in there, and then we'll go to Councillor Meath.
Yeah, thank you very much. I support
yeah,
this
Councillor
because notwithstanding there is legal action, thanks for the clarification on this, it is right next to the Battle of the Boyne site. It's a heritage site. It is a big, it is a site that needs to be protected, and this amount of land zoned housing, as much as housing is needed, is not the place for it. I think if there was an alternative, I would be open to looking at that. Now, I understand it's under legal in the cases in the courts, but this would be better served as an area of green space and looking somewhere else, I believe. But I don't know what that area is, so that's the part that I'm having difficulty in. Where do we identify that area, and whether it should go back to the town plan? But it is better served as a green space, and that's why I would be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bonner, apologies for that misunderstanding, Councillor.
Yeah, that's fine. Actually, my video connection dropped, and it's actually in relation to the previous motion. The councillors looking for to go to a vote. I would have been in support of that, but I think it moved on, and it's just that but I also was in support of the executives, the manager's suggestion, and I think you got that. But anyway, it dropped out at the wrong time.
No problem at all. No problem at all. And it's important that anybody that happens to just let us know, and we'll do everything we can to facilitate people, because these things can happen. Your vote was recorded. Councillor
Yeah, okay, but I also wanted to, and I wanted to support the councillors who wanted to go to a show of hands, but it had moved on. I just wanted, yeah.
Okay.
So and just in the interest of fairness, but it had moved on. Sorry, it's okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Tobin.
Thanks a million. It must be all the roadworks going on here, because the broadband in Ashford today seems to be quite bad. I'm using the SIM card now at the moment because I have to get it off the broadband itself. Just briefly, did we not set a precedent already where we dezoned land where there is a judicial review, which is a court case as well? Or is a judicial review a different type of court case, or can we define what court cases are? Because I'm presuming that that would enlighten us as to whether we can or can't take a decision on this particular motion of my colleague and good friend Paddy Meath's. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor. Just with a specific, just again to clarify maybe what Pádraig is saying about that with regards to his comment, just to clarify it so we're not talking about it in the wrong direction.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, my comment was there are time frames within which appeals can be made on decisions, and I'm no expert in this area, so if Rory was in the background, he might clarify for me, and just that we are correct. You have 2 months from the decision made on an application, the Board Planola application that was made under reference. I stated there are 2 months in which you can take a judicial review. That obviously happened, and now there is potential that decision of the High Court could be challenged to the Supreme Court, as I understand it. And I also stated that potentially a challenge could be made to the High Court decision that we have before us, and it is still within the time frame, 28 days, and we're just unclear with Christmas as to what the dates are with the courts, and that's why I can't give you specific dates. And we did check this out today, that potentially the legal challenge to this judicial review could be either today or tomorrow. We're not exactly clear, but it's due to the Christmas period. So these lands are the subject of the High Court challenge, as I say. There could be, the decision could be appealed to the Supreme Court. At this point in time, we don't know exactly where that's at. But members need to just know that as part of this consideration. And I would state that it is a strategic land bank within Drogheda, and the best forum for consideration of this and all other residential lands is the Joint Urban Plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Pádraig. Can we take in Rory, if you could give us some advice,
yes,
please?
Good afternoon. I'm not sure the exact date of the High Court judgment, but I do believe Pádraig is correct the parties are still within time to lodge an appeal. The appeal will go to actually the board, the Court of Appeal. Yes, so they're still within time. It will go to the Court of Appeal as distinct to the Supreme Court. But if, for instance, the Court of Appeal were to reverse the High Court, then that planning permission stands irrespective of any changes that the members might decide to make in this zoning. So that's something that should be borne in mind, that the zoning cannot affect an extant planning permission. So if the planning permission is reinstated, it's reinstated from the time Bord Pleanála originally gave the grant, and that it would then be a live planning permission, which is available to the landowners.
Thank you, Rory.
Okay.
Councillor Fox.
Could I come in a second on that one?
Yeah, sure.
As
Who's
well?
that?
Sorry,
Sean.
Yeah, sorry, just to highlight the difference between this one and the one that we discussed previous in Ashburn, which was the change of zoning of a site that was subject to a judicial review. I suppose the change in zoning in Ashburn was as a result of 350 something submissions made as part of the public consultation. The change of zoning being requested here is as a result of a member's request through a notice of motion. But more significantly, I suppose, is that throughout the entire of South Drogheda Environs, the Chief Executive has recommended no change. So that's the main purpose behind it. But Pádraig is right in advising that there may be a judicial review on that decision. So it's not, they're different for that reason. Thank you, Ciarán.
Sean, yeah, Councillor Fox.
Look, you can hear me clearly. Thanks for that.
Yes.
Just for the members' information, the judgment on this site had bearing on the Bord Pleanála's decision on a large site in Enfield recently, where the board took cognizance of the judge's decision and actually mentioned the judge's decision in their decision to turn down an SHD of 350 houses in Enfield. So just for the information of the members, I think that should be borne in account as well, because I think we're in uncharted waters here, a legal minefield. So just take that into account, that this has have ramifications all over the country on phase 2 lands as regards SHDs, that this the Bord Pleanála mentioned a particular judgment in their decision in Enfield. I presume that will have similar decisions around the country the same. So just for members' information.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Tolan.
Thanks, Ciarán. And I suppose I'd just like clarification from Pádraig on one item. But before that, can I just say that my understanding on the judicial review on this is that the proximity to the Boyne SAC and the possibility that the site could be an ex situ site, as in somewhere the birds go after they've had their tea on the Boyne SAC, if you know what I mean, and go and land on this site. It's a very sensitive site, and I know that it's very sensitive for local people there in relation to more housing. However, I suppose my question is in relation to outside the red line around that area, the then piece that remains A2, will that be cut off from any access, and will that leave us open to a court challenge as to access to somebody's land in order to develop it as residential, if we have then zoned another piece not residential like that? And again, I suppose I'm reticent in making any changes until the joint urban area plan. However, it is a very sensitive site in relation to the Old Bridge site and the Boyne SAC.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
I can come in here. That other side.
Yeah, Councillor, you 1 second, please. Yeah, so there was a question, a very specific legal question there.
The answer to that is that site's already built on that other side.
Okay, so we're going to come and we're going to finish the discussion now with Councillor Meath.
Thank you, Ciarán. And I believe, while I welcome debate, it has slightly muddied the water. I'll tell you from my own experience, I've been noticed party witness and involved in 6 judicial reviews to date. And let's be clear, regardless of whether this is appealed or whether it is not appealed, it does not tie our hands in any way. We are free as councillors to do as we see best for our town and county, and that is what we should always aim to do. The site next to this, which is zoned, is already been built on, and there is no access problems because there is a road running between, roughly where the red line is between them. So I am proposing that this whole site be changed to F1 open space. And let's be clear, this is the town of Drogheda. And if you look at the towns of Navan or Ashbourne, we have big open areas and lots of hullabaloo and delight about them being delivered upon. That's what we should be entitled to and deserve in our area as well. And that is what is needed in this area. There is no legal reason why we should not proceed here. It was raised that in relation to Ashbourne, 350 public submissions came in, yes, and here only one councillor. But if anyone has been following our district meetings, they'll know there's been an awful lot of talk about this, and there was, if you look at the planning application and you note that the minutes of, when it went to Board Penala, when the minutes of our district meeting were attached, you will see that there was a lot of thought from our district on this. And so I'd like to think that regardless of me being one councillor or whether this was a joint motion for 10 councillors, the main thing is it the right thing to do or is it the wrong thing to do? In Drogheda, like in most of the county, there's a shortage of housing. So it's important we zone A1 in the best, or sorry, A2 in the best locations for more houses. The only thing to take from all the legal talk here is that there might be complications on this site, whereas there mightn't be on others. But we should progress, and we should.
We're going to progress now. We're going to progress to a vote.
Thank you.
And that's what's going to happen now. So with regards to how this is going to proceed, you're going to be asked with regards to the Chief Executive's recommendation of no change. And we're going to be asked if you agree with the Chief Executive's recommendation of no change initially. So I will ask you, do you agree with the Chief Executive's recommendation of no change? Please indicate that with a raised hand icon. Thank you.
I know you do. We sorted that. There was a problem with the mute, yeah.
Councillor Riley, is it?
Yeah. There was a problem with the little thing, yeah.
Councillor Drew or Councillor Dean, okay. If you just might mute your microphone there, please.
Oh, sorry.
No. So, and then we're going to ask you to indicate that if everybody takes down their hand. And now we're going to ask, when everyone has their hand down, please. Oh, yeah. Just to remind myself. And then, so if the two councillors there, take your hands down. We start again from a blank screen of no hands. Councillor O'Reilly, could you take your hand down, please? Okay, now if you would like to express your disagreement with the Chief Executive's recommendation of no change, please raise your hand now. Just for clarification, Councillor Dean, did you raise your hand at the last time? Okay. Okay, so we'll so with regards to the results, so it's quite a majority in favour of 18-7 is the response there. So quite a significant majority in favour of upholding the Chief Executive's recommendation. So with that, we move on to notice of motion number 6, Councillor Paddy Meath. If everyone could take their hands down, please. Okay, so we notice a motion number 6, Councillor Paddy Meath. If I have a seconder for Councillor Meath's motion. Anybody second that motion? Councillor Tobin. Now, bearing in mind, we had a lot of the information that was discussed in the previous motion because it pertains to the same parcel of land. Anything that has been already discussed with regards to the rights and wrongs of that particular piece of land that may have been discussed at notice of motion number 5. Be aware of that, please. We're not going to rehash the same conversation. Be certain of that. Councillor Meath, if you'd like to
yes,
move your motion.
Yes, thank you, Ciara, and I appreciate this will be a very short debate. The reason I didn't put both motions together was because if the first one had passed, I would have withdrawn this motion. So in my first motion, I felt, and I still do feel, the best thing for that site would be open space. And now, by a vote of 18-7, the council, my fellow councillors, don't agree to that. I think the second best option for that site would be community infrastructure. I would stress that there is a need on that side of Drogheda for community infrastructure. I could go in depth with this for the next 10 minutes and we could have the whole same debate, but let's not have it. I think we just progress straight to a vote. Thank you.
Thank you. So bearing in mind the previous conversation that we had around notice of motion number 5, I'm going to put the question to you. Oh, yeah, we're going to have the formal response from the Chief Executive, please, first.
Hello, can you hear me, member?
That's a very dramatic entry you're making, Pádraig.
Thankfully, it's not attributed to me or wherever it comes from. Look at again, for the purpose of the meeting and the discussions previously, the proposal last time, I presume, was all open space. This one is all G1, as I understand it, which would be educational. And under the zoning matrix, there's a large number of uses that could be permitted on these lands. It is our proposal, inconsistent with previous recommendations, not to change anything at this time. And I would emphasize to members that where additional community, educational, or any facilities will be required, we will be robustly defending and highlighting where they are rightfully located within the joint urban plan and ensure that we have adequate amount of land to accommodate same. We're not just sure at this point in time if that site is the best G1 site, be it for school or community facilities. So as part of the assessment of zoning under the joint urban plan, we will make that decision and recommendation. But at this point in time, no change recommended.
Okay, thank you very much, Pádraig. So what we're going to do is we will move to a vote. I'm going to ask people to indicate using their raised hand icon. Sorry, Councillor Murphy. Okay, so Councillor French, you wish to speak? Okay, so just if everyone could just wait till they're asked to actually vote, if you because I'll presume that you want to speak. We had some a slight issue yesterday with Councillor Adenuga and Councillor Bonner. So it's important that we learn from our mistakes. So they had indicated they wished to speak, and I interpreted that as a vote. So I try to improve with each meeting. So upon only being asked to raise your hand, please raise your hand. So you are now being asked. If you're in agreement with the Chief Executive's recommendation, please raise your hand. Okay, and if you could take down your hands now, please. And if you could, we'll wait till all the screen is blank. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So if you are not in agreement with the Chief Executive's recommendation, please raise your hand now. Okay, that's very good. That's a significant majority in favour of the Chief Executive's recommendation. So thank you very much. So then we move on to notice of motions number 7, which is the last.
Sorry, what's the result?
20 to 5.
Thank you.
So we move on to notice of motion number 7, with Councillor Stephen McKee. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Meath, could you take down your hand, please? Thank you. So Councillor Meath is seconding this motion. Councillor McKee.
Okay, thanks, Cahill. This motion, I don't know if we can, Sean, maybe we can get it up on the screen, please.
Okay, Councillor.
Yeah, well, basically, just to set out the motion, the motion sets out essentially to regularise the zoning, the land for residential zoning in the Southern Drogheda environs. Nearby land, just if there's a map there with it on showing a few different sites, but essentially, the site itself, you see, is approximately 17 acres as far as I know. But
Councillor, your signal. Sorry, Councillor, your signal is quite erratic. Could you switch off your camera, and then if you switch off your camera, your audio will smooth out, I think. So will you try that there? We'll see how we go.
Okay, yeah, I've done that there. Yeah,
yeah,
is that better?
Okay. That sounds a bit better. All right.
Okay. Okay. Well, look, I don't know if you can turn the map around it, sort of upside down there. But essentially, what I'm trying to do with the motion is to regularise the zoning for residential development in the Southern Drogheda environs. There is land of a similar size to the land I've marked. Essentially, there's a request of changing zoning on land that is marked for community infrastructure. And you'll see it there, request change of zoning to new residential. Now, there is nearby land and it's marked St. Mary's Sports Fields. Now, that land there has been used for community recreational use for over 40 years. So it shouldn't actually be marked for new residential whatsoever, and it has been previously. But what I'm asking is that land would be zoned as it's currently used community infrastructure, and essentially there'll be a swap of land, that community infrastructure land would be swapped over to the land earmarked there. Yeah, that particular land there, that site there. Now, the land was previously zoned there for new residential until 2013. This swap would ensure that the quota of new residential development in the area would not exceed that proposed in the development plan. Furthermore, part of the land zoned new residential to the west, which is marked Knightswood, and that's the one in the black hatching there, that's already been developed on as part of the development, so it's effectively already used. So it's my contention that should not be included as zoned land for future development, which would further free up more residential land. Now, the land in question there obviously is community infrastructure. It's not, the proposal is not to use all of that land for new residential. The proposal is to use about half of that for new residential. I would say that the developer there, Joe Murphy Development, is a long-standing developer from the Southern Environs of Drogheda, with an excellent reputation for well-designed, well-finished homes. The homes include in our own area Deep Ford, Stameen, Five Oaks, and more recently Knightswood. So they've a proven track record in the area and wish to continue to play their part in delivering much-needed quality homes for families into the future in the Southern Drogheda environs. So the request is for that particular land there, a part of that land, would be rezoned as new residential, taking into account the existing community land already that's already mapped, that in my view is wrongly zoned for new residential, and to take into account the land that's already been used up in Knightswood. So that's essentially the motion and what I'm proposing.
Okay, Pádraig, maybe if you could have an opportunity to present us with the Chief Executive's recommendation, please.
Yes, sorry, can you hear me there? It's
Alan.
It's Alan here.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, the Knightswood housing development, the lands which are referred to there, they're actually A1 existing residential. They are not zoned A2, so it would be not possible to utilise them in a land swap. with these lands. The lands in question here are G1 community zoning, which from our point of view would form an important community land bank in association with the substantial residential zoning there to the right hand side. So the Knightswood land use is A1 existing residential, so it's not possible to replace an A1 existing residential zoning with an A2 because it has already been built out, and that is recognised in the draft plan as per the A1 existing residential zoning. Thank you.
Thank you. So with regards to the recommendation?
As with the other motions, our recommendation would be for no change in this instance.
Thank you. And just again, just before we bring the rest of the room in, I just have a query about the provision of maps with private companies' names written on them. Is about I know there's nothing. It's just raised the question that is that an appropriate format to receive maps to the meeting? I know a ringing endorsement by Councillor McKee of the developer, and that's always excellent to hear. But I'm just curious as to that for further mapping. There's no concern around that. No, okay. So Councillor McGinty. Oh, Councillor Meath. Sorry, Councillor Meath seconded the motion.
Thank you, Look, it's an awkward one in that we're discussing three bits of land in the same one, and it's I suppose my interest here would be the bit across the road from St Mary's Parish Primary School. That's a school of 1,200 children. It's a school that uses the land across the road and does need to keep using that. One of the issues in the area is even with the biggest primary school in Ireland, there's still not enough school spaces. And so I very much welcome the idea of changing the zoning across from the school to community. That I very much support. The way the map is drawn, though, that bit square is a lot smaller than the bit that we're taking out of the community. Though I understand Councillor McKee thought he could add in the bit from Knightswood. So that would have to be corrected. I suppose if we were to move the community bit from where it is over, I want to know, would the planners agree it would be a better job to move the whole stretch over and have that whole block that's across the school down towards the east coast, which I had an interactive map that I could draw a prize. But would it be, does the planners think having the big chunk of community in one block is beneficial? And if they were agreeing to move some of it over there, would they think it would be better to move an awful lot of it over there? And then I suppose if we could ask the other arm of the council, does the council think there's any potential of investment, be it from the council or be it from capital, to actually develop things here for the community? Or will this, my big fear is we have great areas of community zone in that map where I fear nothing might ever happen. Whereas across from the school, there is an ability for something to happen because something's already happening there. And should we be expanding on it? And maybe some of them answers could be coming. Thank you.
Thank you. Jackie, you just want to come in and might clarify some of the later points that councillors may have. That's just.
Well, I'm not sure about giving clarity on it. I suppose, Chair, I just want to say to the members again, I suppose this is why we are saying no change in this area until such time as we're doing the joint area plan. You know, the specific questions and blocks and requirements for a population such as lives in South Drogheda and indeed in Drogheda itself is more best suited to the discussion that will take place and the decisions that will be made and included on the issues paper. So, you know, I suppose, Councillor McKee, I'd have to say at this point, I am pleading to you in this case, take this back and keep it for the joint area plan. I suppose it's as simple as that. And I don't know if Pádraig has had time to come in. You know, you're talking about chunks of land here that haven't been properly assessed. We haven't had time to look at them. And I just think, again, for the reason, members, this is more appropriately discussed at when we go to do the area plan. I can't be as simple as that. And I suppose I am formally asking Councillor McKee if he'd consider withdrawing this right now. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor. Councillor McKee?
Am I the final speaker, am I?
Sorry?
On this? Am I the final speaker on this?
No, Councillor. The CE asked this very specific question to you, so I'm giving you an opportunity to reply before we move on to the next councillor.
Yeah, no problem. Look, first of all, apologies if the map is a little bit crude.
No, but Councillor, sorry. The Chief Executive asked you a specific question. You will have an opportunity to sum up if you decide to. Councillor, can I finish, please? You'll have an opportunity to sum up when you get your final say on if you decide to not to withdraw it. But the CE has asked you to withdraw that and apply it to the joint urban area plan. If you decide to do that now, we can finish the conversation now. If you decide to not do that, we'll progress and we'll get back to you to clarify your position again after the other speakers have had an opportunity to speak. But if you decide to acquiesce to Jackie's request to withdraw this motion, then we can do that. If you don't, then we'll continue with Councillor Tolan.
Yeah, look, based on what previous votes and so on, and what the Chief Executive has said, look, I'm willing to withdraw the motion based on it going forward to the local area plan, the joint urban area plan.
Fantastic. Excellent. Well done.
I take on board, if I could just finish, please. Yep. I take on board what's been said by the Chief Executive. I take on board how previous votes have gone and so on. And it's clear that, you know, that most members are want to obviously address in the joint forum of the joint urban area plan, and I get that. What I would like is that the motion and the motions that I put down today, they're that board, that joint urban area plan, and they're dealt with in that forum in a way that I think it's fair and reasonable from the point of view of what's best in my view for the residents of the area. I would like to take on board what Councillor Meath said about an extension of that area there, the sports field. I think that's an excellent suggestion, that perhaps that block of land could be zoned in its entirety as recreational, and I think maybe that could be something maybe that you could take on board. In relation to the map, I apologise if it's a little bit crude. Look, though that land is the only map I had actually, but that land itself, it's public knowledge. I mean, whose ownership that land is in, and essentially, look, I'm representing the residents of the area in as best I can, you know, and I'm putting forward ideas for zoning in the area, you know, in a manner I think it's fair and reasonable for.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
So I appreciate that, and I just ask that this be brought forward to the Joint Urban Area Council.
So you're withdrawing that. Thank you very much.
I'm withdrawing the motion. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tolan. You want to comment briefly? No.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Look, I wasn't going to be supporting it, so it's withdrawn now. But I mean, I would say over my cold dead body, would I rezone any community land for housing at this stage?
That's a discussion for another day, Councillor.
Yeah.
Councillor McGinty.
Sorry, I couldn't concur more. The significance of what was being suggested there and the implications were not as trivial as presented. So I am so glad this is withdrawn. Over my cold dead body, that's been done either.
Thank you.
Okay,
thank you very much. That is excellent. We have moved to the end of the notice of motions for South Drogheda Environs. We have two blood oaths sworn as well, which is very interesting, and we don't need to consider those. So I'd like to thank everybody for their participation today. I think it was a good example of how we've learned a lot from our discussions today. That's why maybe there was a little bit more leeway around particular points, so that those points can be carried with us if they're generic points or points that are more applicable or equally applicable to other discussions that may take place later. I don't think that any discussion that we've had today has to be had another day, and that's the point why every day we make progress, we'll make progress together. Any day that we're being just talking, we'll make progress that day. So I see Jackie just wants to come in there.
Thank you, Ciarán. And just before you conclude the meeting, and we will obviously revert on Friday, date set for considering the Chief Executive's report. We will be returning to the submissions on South Drogheda. But I suppose just to reference members, we have dates set for next week beginning of the 18th, and they will be in your diary already. But it's quite obvious that we're going to need further dates into January. And if I could just ask Robert to pull up suggested schedule of where we go. You need to, yeah, we're meeting, we have in the diaries already Monday the 18th, 10 to 1, Thursday the 21st, 2 to 5, and Friday the 22nd, 10 to 1. Now, obviously, when we set the times, we were at the hybrid. So obviously, as you have seen, because we're all online, that the public health guidelines in relation to the 1 hour 55 don't apply, and we can proceed. But obviously, we do need to curtail it too, because it's quite time consuming and draining. And really, I'd say, Chair, probably 3 hours and maybe a little bit more if you thought you were going to finish something like we did today would be more appropriate. But we'd also have to introduce additional dates, and we are suggesting there Monday the January 25th and Wednesday January 27th at suggested times. So we can circulate that, Cathaoirleach, as we would normally do. Now again, whether that will you know, we'll have to judge as we go whether we need further dates thereafter, depending on where we are within the content of the tiers.
Okay. Cheers. So what we might do is conclude the meeting now until Friday. And thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody, for your participation. And we done? We're done. See you on Friday. Slán.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Jackie. Bye.